All right, we are live. Hello, everybody watching on the live stream or on the replay. Cliff Ravenscraft here with another How May I Serve You Today? Ask Me Anything session. I've already got two individuals joined on Zoom. You can join me on Zoom as well over at right there, cliffravenscraft.com/join. The only thing is, though, is I'm working on an issue where I am not hearing anybody on Zoom. So bear with me as I try to figure this out. That's me muting my audio. Let's see. I'm going to change speakers from this to, let's do MacBook speakers. Lauren, can you say hello now?
Hello, hello.
Okay, so there you are on my MacBook speakers. That's not how I want to hear you throughout the thing. Although say hello again, and I'll probably see if Zoom or if the Ecamm people can hear you, the stream people.
Hello, hello.
Yeah, it's going out to them. But I want to see if I can get you in my headphones here. So now try again.
Hello, hello.
Nothing. Nothing. Okay. Wow, this is always fun to have a tech issue right at the start of a live stream. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off my Rodecaster Pro. So no audio from me right now. Well, I think Zoom is probably...
Oh.
Now I'm waiting for it to turn on. Okay, so I'm hitting record. This is the recording of my live stream, Ask Me Anything, for Thursday, July 2025. We are working on technical difficulties. I do see that my audio is going out to the live stream. And Lauren, can you say something to me?
Can you hear me now?
Yes! We have solved it. Sweet. All right, let me first, I'm going to go ahead and bring Lauren up. She's already told me that she's going to join me today, which is awesome. We'll bring you up there. Hi, Lauren.
Hi.
All right, and let me explain real quickly for folks what's going on. So I'm hosting these How May I Serve You, Ask Me Anything live streams. This is an opportunity for anyone to jump into a live Zoom call with me. And if you're open for the opportunity to have a conversation with me in public in front of a live streaming audience, with the potential of even having our conversation be in a podcast episode, potential, not promise, but if you're open to that, an opportunity for you and I to talk about anything. And I do mean anything. So that I host these quite often, and I am delighted to do it now. If you want to join me live, there's already Lauren here. Mark is in the queue next, and you could be right after Mark. Or depending on if Mark wants to join us, you could be next, potentially. All you have to do is go to cliffravenscraft.com/join, and welcome. All right, give me 1 second. Now that we had our technical difficulties, I am going to... By the way, on Zoom, I just saw the thumbs up from Mark. So Mark's queued up. He's next. I'm going to take one more drink. Lauren, how may I serve you today?
Sure. Actually, my husband was the one that was like, you need to go jump on this and ask your questions. And I was like, okay, I guess we're doing that.
I love that. Okay, so tell me more. Who is your husband, and do you even know who I am, and what's going on? Give me the backstory here.
Yeah, I guess my husband's been following you for quite some time. And he's shared your podcast history and your coaching experience, and he's like, this is somebody to talk to and kind of ask all those businessy questions. So I've been following you for a little bit, but he's definitely been following you for quite some time.
Excellent. Well, Lauren, great. This is wonderful. I am thrilled that you're here, and it sounds to me like you have some businessy questions, and so let's go down the business rabbit hole. How can I be of service to you today?
Yeah, I have a private practice as a mental health therapist, but I am transitioning to a coaching style business with my own coaching methodology that I've created with my experience as a clinical therapist and working with, thousands of hours of experience, but also as a hypnotist and other modalities like EMDR that I have kind of curated to really get people from, you know, making change quickly in their brains, overcoming anxieties and depressions, traumas, things like that, or just feeling free. But I struggle with kind of that, how to like find those referrals or just get my voice out in a way where people can find me and not kind of falling into just traditional therapy, which I did for years prior. So I'm curious, I've thought about podcasting and I've thought about doing these things, but I don't know really where that kind of, how do I get people to, where do I put my voice out there? Where are people going to find me? Where is the referrals? Like, how do I kind of get into that space a little bit more? And that's, I know it's kind of general, but
No, that's perfect. I love it. So let me ask you this. You mentioned podcasts.
Mhm.
Is there any particular place that you feel called or feel prompted to put your voice out there?
Like on a podcast or like on a social
And
media net place?
yes, any of the above and anything else. So
Yes.
so there's a lot of things other people say you should do this, you should do
Hmm.
this. There's these people they do this. Forget about all of that for a second. But what does Lauren inside? Have you had any kind of like, oh, I'd really like to put my voice out in this way? Is there anything that comes up for you?
Yeah, I've always I love podcasts. I don't actually listen to a lot, but I
Hmm.
like sharing information and I love talking about I kind of geek out on the brain and this is what's really happening and I feel like I could talk about that and people and I want to share that information and I've thought about podcasting, but then there's all those like, well, this is how to do it or this is how not to do it and it's a saturated market or whatever other business noises out there, but I am on Instagram, so I've been trying to get my voice out there a little bit
Okay,
more.
Lauren, pause right there for just a moment. You are still hearing me? Yes.
Yes.
Roadcaster Pro has just failed me again, and no longer hearing you. So I do
Oh,
apologize. Oh, say something. I think I just heard you now.
can you
Okay.
hear me now?
Yes, I did. So please forgive me. I'm having some technical difficulties over here. I have
It's
no
okay.
idea. However, let me tell you what I did hear, and then you can pick up where you left off, or where I think maybe some other people may have heard you on Zoom, but the people on this live stream and myself did not. Actually, I'm pretty sure the live stream still picked you up as well. However, I did not. So, what I last heard was I really love podcasts. I don't necessarily listen to a lot of podcasts, but I do like the idea of geeking out and sharing all of the brain science stuff that I'm passionate about. And then there's the voices that say, well, this is the right way and the wrong way. You should do it this way. You shouldn't do it that way. And it's oversaturated. So why get out there? There's so many people doing it. And that's where it cut off the audio for me. So can you pick up from there?
Yeah, I think the last thing I said was I am on Instagram. It's probably one of the more the social media platforms I'm most comfortable with. I kind of know how to use it, and I've been putting out, trying to make reels and just kind of sharing about what I do. And then I have an email list. I've done a summit in the past, and I have another summit coming up. So I'm, working on just gaining traction and bringing people into my field and wanting people to know, like my real goal is I want people to know that they can change, that they can live beyond this anxiety or beyond these diagnoses and beyond those labels that they put on themselves. And we can do that relatively quick. And that's really what I want people to know is that it's not hopeless, even if you've been in therapy for 20 years. And it's just like, I want to tell everybody. I tell my friends, they're like, okay, that's enough. I'm like, okay.
Okay.
It's
So
exciting.
let me tell you what I just heard. You have an Instagram, you have an
Mhm.
email list, you've facilitated multiple summits. Is that all
One so
correct?
far and one coming up. Yeah.
One so far, one coming up. Can you tell me a little bit about your first summit? What was the experience? How many people did you desire to have there? How many people actually materialized? Was it in person? Was it virtual? What can you tell me?
Yeah, it was virtual. And I feel it was the first one I ever done. So it was a little clunky in doing it. So there was a lot I learned from it. So I didn't have a huge outpouring from it. I got like 79 people on the email list, which was great. And I've been steadily losing them since then, which I'm learning is all part of business. Those aren't your people. Um, So that one was about where faith and psychology meet, tools and conversations. And so the next one is a lot more clear. So this one that I'm doing is a little, I feel like more clear. I kind of know what I'm doing, what kind of speakers to host on it. I've got about 10 speakers already lined up on that summit. I had 10 in this past one.
Excellent. So you had 79 people sign up to register for the summit, yes?
Yes.
Excellent. And how many of those people were on your mailing list before?
I had no mailing list before.
So you had
At
no
zero.
mailing list, but
Hmm.
because you had some other participants who were facilitating with you, sharing
Hmm.
insight information, both you, or not only you, but also some of your guests were promoting this, and that
Yes.
built you a list of about 79 people.
Yes.
Now, my next question for you is how many people actually showed up, like came to the summit?
So I did it as a pre-recorded summit and then the videos went out. So it wasn't live, which felt like a lot to do something like that live for the first time
Oh,
doing
yeah,
something like
it's
that.
definitely a lot.
So I don't know the exact numbers of how many people watched. I could probably find those numbers and go look and see how many people actually watched it, but I'm not
That
entirely
that
sure.
would be one of the things that I would do. So let me ask you, when you did the publishing of the content, where did you
Mhm.
publish it for them to view it?
So I published it on YouTube as unlisted, so just the people with the link can see the videos.
Excellent. So this is great. That tells me that you will at least be able to go into YouTube Studio or the Creator Studio or whatever it's called, and you'll see a couple of things. The couple of things that I want you to look for first is the number of views.
Mm.
But quite frankly, if somebody was to click through the notice of one of the replays and they click the link and it starts playing the video and they've watched it, I don't know what it is, if it's 7 seconds, 10 seconds, 50, if they've watched a minute or less, you've got a view. All right.
Mm.
The other thing is that some of those people may have clicked through just to see that they have access to it and they're like, oh, this is good, but I don't have time to watch it right now. And so they might come back 2 or 3 hours later and click again. And so again, it's not a real accurate count of how many
Mhm.
people, but it's still a number. The other thing to do, I'm not an analytics kind of guy myself, but inside of the studio, there is the ability for you to go in by video to video to video and watch what's called the retention graph. And this
Mm.
will show you the number of people who actually have watched at different sections of the video. And so it should be relatively high at the beginning, and then you're going to see a real big trail off. And there may be a handful of people who made it all the way to the end of the video. What I look for is how many people made it through the halfway point of
Mm.
each of those videos. That'd be a good number to know. And let me put some what I consider to be some good signs here for you. If you had 79 people register for this thing, and you have about 3 people who actually watched all the way at least through half of several of the videos, that's a pretty good return. I mean, it's a significant good return that you could get with such a small sample of people. 3 individuals who made it through at least half of a number of these videos, then you're on to something, and it's giving you some good indicator that if you had more people that came in, that percentage would probably play out. Is
Mm.
that helpful?
Yeah.
Okay. Now the other thing is I'd love to ask you is when you were doing this, what email service provider did you use?
I'm using MailerLite.
Okay. I don't know anything at all about MailerLite, but that's okay. One of the things that should be involved in any modern day email list service, you should be able to go in and see each email that was sent. And
Yeah.
you should be able to have a report on the number of people who clicked on the links to the video replays.
Yeah, that I can see.
Okay, great. That's very good. And then in your system, I don't know again what plan you're on and what they have available, but on that number, like let's just say out of it emailed 79 people about the replay for this particular video. And the thing says that 13 people clicked the link for the replay. You should be able to click on the number 13 and it shows you the email address of the
Mm.
13 people who clicked. Have you done that yet?
No.
Okay. This would be my first thing that I would do. I would go and get that list. And again, by the way, if I'm using 13, 13 could be a very high number. Please, whatever you do, don't get discouraged if it's 2 people that click the link. All right?
Right.
Do not get discouraged. We're not into this for the numbers at this point. You're into this to find out if there's anyone out there in the void who actually is resonating with what you're putting out. And so if you find 2 or 3 or however many people who have clicked the link, then what I would do is let's just say I'm you and you're
Mhm.
one of the people. I see your email. It doesn't even have your name. And let's just say you have, it's Trixie123@gmail.com or whatever. And so I have no idea even what your first name is. So what I would do is I would not do anything automated at this point because the numbers are so low. We're not worried about scalability in any way, shape, or form.
Mm.
I want you to imagine that I have no idea if you actually watched the videos, but here's what I do know. I know that you responded to a call to action to sign up and register for this summit. The second thing I know is that you opened an email that said the replay was available. The third thing that I know is that you also clicked the link to the video. I don't know anything about you beyond those 3 things. However, it's enough to give me a little bit of feeling like there might be some resonance here. And
Mm.
so let's just assume that I don't know your name. I'm going to say, hey, this is not an automated email. And I would call you by your first name. But unfortunately, all I have is a list here that says your email address is trixie123@gmail.com. So let me call you Trixie. Anyway, I noticed that you signed up for my summit. I also know that you clicked through to the replay. I don't know anything beyond that, but I would like to ask you a question. Is there any way that I could serve you today?
Mm.
And hit send and see if they reply. Just do anything to open dialogue, communication with all of those people that you have confirmed that they've done that. Now, I would start with the people who have clicked the emails to the replay. That's where I would
Mhm.
begin. The next place I would go is to the other, let's just say you go through how many different video replays did you link to?
We had 10 altogether.
So 10 video replays. Let's just say out of the 79 people, there are 15 people who have clicked the various different links to replays. All right. So you've now personally reached out to those 15 people. By the way, if their email is lauren.something@gmail.com, go ahead and call them by Lauren. And I don't know,
Mhm.
maybe you've even asked for their first name. And if they gave the first name,
Mhm.
call them by first name. But again, I would even point out and I would even make a point to say, this is not automated. I'm going to pause myself for a second and back up and tell you something I would do even beyond that. There's a service called Loom, Loom. Have you ever heard
Mhm.
of Loom?
I've heard of it.
So Loom is a video email service. So if you want to go to the next level, I
Mm.
would pull up my video camera on my phone and I would hit record and say, "Hey Lauren, Cliff Ravenscraft here. I just wanted to reach out and tell you how thrilled I am that you signed up for the summit. And I also just noticed that you did click through to at least 3 or 4 of the replays. I don't know if you watched anything or not, but that's not the point. The point is that you signed up for this thing where faith intersects with psychology. And I'd like to ask you, what was it that drew you to this thing? And is there any way that I personally could be of any service or value to you?" As you can see, this is not an automated message. I made this just for you, Lauren, and I can't wait to hear back from you. Just hit reply on the email that sent you a link to this video, and I can't wait to connect with you. Send that to those 15 people.
Oh, I like that.
That's where this all begins. This is how it all started for me. When I began my business journey, it was all about reaching people one person at a time. And I can't remember, there was a day where basically what happened was we would ask for people for feedback in our podcast, myself and my wife. And occasionally people, actually not occasionally, a lot of times people would email us. Some of those people's emails had a phone number in their signature line. And
Mm.
so I would in those days, every time an email came in, I got notified. And because I didn't have a large audience to contend with, right? I just like, I was like, anybody who's willing to interact with me, I'm going to reach out and make this as personable as I can. And eventually this doesn't work. And you'll still, me, 20 years later, I still do for some what I wish I could do for everyone.
Mm.
So I will still do this today. But if an email just dropped in my inbox and it's like less than 60 seconds ago, this email just came in. Do you know what that tells me? The person who sent this email is at a computer or on a smartphone and they just hit send to communicate to me. And if I open that email up and it's got a phone number there, I pull up my phone, type in that number, and I call them. And I can't begin to tell you the number of times when somebody has answered that phone and they said hello, and I'm like, "Is this Lauren?" "Yeah, who is this?" "It's Cliff Ravenscraft. You just emailed me." "What? Oh my gosh." So these are the kinds of things, Lauren, I would encourage you to be doing. And never underestimate the value of doing this just one person at a time.
Mm.
So let me just pause here and ask you what's coming up for you and what things are going through your mind as you hear all of this.
I love that because it's important for me, for anyone who works with me, to know that you're working with me. Anytime I've had like kind of business stuff in the past, I feel like you get that call and then someone else shows up after you've made the appointment and you're like, wait, who are you? And like, why, where's the person I thought I was going to be meeting with? So I really like that because it is me. It's me writing my emails. It's me reaching out to you. It's when you come into a session with me, you're going to be working with me. So I really like that genuine connection, and I hadn't even thought about that to
Yeah.
make it even more personalized.
So check this out. I'm not sure if you're able to see this. You should be able to.
Hmm.
Matt Perkins is watching us on Facebook, and he says, "I got one of those video emails from you, Cliff. It left a huge impression on me."
Mm.
And what I will share with you, Lauren, is the number of people who eventually became clients. And I'm talking about high ticket, high value clients. The number of them say, "You know what? If you want to know where this all began, Cliff, it was when you sent me a personalized a video when I subscribed to your email list out of the blue."
Mm.
And the thing is those it might have been at a time when I might have had 30 email people sign up, or submissions or subscriptions that came in that, and he might have been the one out of the 30 that I did it for that day or that week or whatever. I can't do this for everyone, but I'm
Mm.
always doing it for some.
Mm. Yeah, I like
Okay.
that.
So that's so here's the interesting thing. If you think about it, you already have, oh, okay. So I paused for a moment. So we've got the 15 people. You potentially are sending a video message, at the very least, a very personalized email message. But now that's just the 15 people out of the 79 who have already registered for the thing and click through a link to see one of the replays, whether they watched it or not. But then I'm not going to try to do live math. Actually, no, I am. So 15, so 79, 4, and that's 54 people left, I think.
I don't do math, Cliff.
I
That's not my thing.
I'm not here to teach anybody math either. So let's pretend it's 54 more people who signed up for your webinar but didn't click any of the links to watch the replays. I would reach out to them. Now, if you have the time, I think it could be incredibly valuable for you to also do that by name with video messages. I mean,
Mm.
think about it. Imagine how you would feel if you saw somebody, you registered for somebody's summit, and then you started getting the emails about the replays that are available, and you opened up the emails, or you didn't open up the emails and you just let them sit there. Maybe you archive them immediately. You're no longer interested in it. Imagine how you would feel if the person that you heard was running it reached out to you with a personal video message. How would that make you feel?
It's special and it would feel good.
Exactly. And then this is a bit controversial, but that's okay. I don't mind being controversial. I would send a special video message to each person who unsubscribed from the emails.
Mm.
All right. And it's like, "Hey, Lauren, Cliff Ravenscraft here. By the way, I saw that you registered for the summit. I see that once we started to broadcast the emails about the replays, that you've unsubscribed, which I totally get it. I don't like a ton of email in my inbox, and with the number of sessions that there were, I totally get it. I just want to let you know how much I appreciate the fact that you did initially show interest and that you registered for the event. By the way, you are unsubscribed from my list. This is not an automated message, but I wanted to personally reach out and say thank you for at least expressing interest, and also to let you know that I'm available to you if there's any way I could be of any support and encouragement as it relates to discussing how faith intersects with psychology. If you'd
Mm.
like to dialogue with me about anything, my door is always open. Feel free to email me anytime. Imagine if you unsubscribed from the messages and you got that video message. How would that make you feel?
I don't know because I've never had that happen.
Well, let's pretend. Let's just pretend you saw a summit from Cliff Ravenscraft, and he was going to do a bunch of sessions with a bunch of other people that you've heard, and you were really excited about the topic. So you clearly gave us your email address to put us on the list, and then we started sending out, let's just say, several emails each week with the links to the recordings, and you unsubscribed because you realized, like, you know what, I am interested in that topic. I just don't have time to sit down and watch several hours of these videos. I know I'm never really going to watch them, so let me just go ahead and unsubscribe. But then you get an email with the link to a video from me saying, "Hey, you're no longer subscribed, but I wanted to give you this message." How would you feel?
Like I wasn't just another number on someone's email list.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So do you see that? If you're asking Cliff, where do I find clients? Do you see you already have 79 potential clients out there?
Hmm.
That's
Yep.
where I would start.
That's awesome. I love that.
Awesome. And then, of course, recognize that when you do your session again, you're likely going to get some more people who register. You're going to have some more of the same things, and rinse and repeat. Keep doing this over and over and over again. And I know that the temptation to say, like, but how can I reach much larger number of people, and how can I get to the place where it's not so much upfront, direct one-on-one, all of this other stuff? And I'm going to say that comes when you get to the place where you understand who this audience is. You and I, as professionals, we know what we think people need, or in many ways, we know what people need. And yet most people don't recognize they need what we have.
Mm.
And so it's very challenging for us in the beginning to use language that resonates with them at such a deep level. And so I say, for the next 3 to 6 months, if you just focused on rinsing and repeating, you don't need a podcast, you don't need anything else. I'm not suggesting you don't do any of those other things. I'm just saying you don't need any of those other things. But if you just did this 79 people at a time for the next 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, you'll start getting booked. You will have clients.
All right, I'm gonna do this.
Sweet. I love it. And then, of course, at any point when you feel like, you know what, okay, I'm starting to have the same kind of conversations, or just because you want to do it, not because it's going to lead you to clients, not because people are instantly going to be attracted to it and you're going to have a big audience. If you're going to create a podcast, my biggest recommendation is create a podcast because you can't not talk about this stuff.
Hmm.
I have 55 podcast shows, over 4,800 podcast episodes. And there's only 3 or 4 shows I've ever created where I created it with the intention of hoping that I could build an audience and monetize or earn income from it.
Mm.
3 out of more than 55 shows, I've had that intention. The rest of them is I just have a topic and I can't not talk about it. And ironically, the ones that were not intended to build an audience and the ones that were not intended to be monetized, those became some of my more successful shows in the metrics of number of subscribers.
Yeah. It makes sense. I feel like when I put content out that is just, when people ask me questions and, they're like, do I need medication? Do I need all these things? And the first thing I say is, well, who told you that in the first place? Right? Where did that information even come from?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that I just want to talk about it. And that's part of why I want the podcast. I'm like, I just want someone to talk to and maybe
Yeah.
someone will listen to it.
So let's talk about that for just a moment. So you clearly, with that, I would say the right time to launch a podcast is right now. So have you already given thought to starting this podcast?
I've thought about it. I have a little fancy microphone here,
Okay.
but it's more for just the work that I do anyway. Um, but yeah, I guess I just was, it's like, is my acoustics good? Like, where do I even record? It's like all those other nuances, and then it starts to feel overwhelming, and then I'm like, maybe I'll just
Yeah.
stay here.
Well, let me just say this. I started with a $35 microphone that was plugged into a 1/8 inch microphone port, and the other plug was plugged into a 1/8 inch headphone jack on a laptop, recording into some free software. And the first 70 episodes I did sounded like trash cans. Like I was recording inside of a trash can. It was terrible. Yet that podcast ended up with over 60,000 subscribers.
Wow.
So I wouldn't concern myself too much with the acoustics. The question is what is the level of quality that I desire for my audio? Now, by the way, we're going to ask, let's see here. Who do we have? We have Mark. Mark is in here. Mark, can you do me a favor? Can you unmute yourself? And I'm going to bring Mark up here if he's still listening. I know he was in his car, so we'll see if he comes on. Can you turn your screen on and unmute your microphone, Mark, if you're still there? And if not,
Yeah, no, I'm here.
There you are. Hey, Mark, let me ask you this. Have you been listening to my conversation with Lauren?
Yeah, I'm just working on my ignition because I want my car to work. So that's
can,
why my video keeps going in and out, because there's an amazing number of wires to an ignition to a steering wheel. But I've been listening thoroughly. I even wrote down Loom for the email. So,
well, let me ask you this. Have you gotten value out of Lauren's perspective? Like when I've asked her questions or she's telling me things and sharing and answering questions to me, providing feedback on what I've shared, have you heard her voice and have you had any value from what she said?
yeah.
Okay, let me ask you this. Have you at any point prior to her asking about the acoustics and the sound of her mic, did you ever once concern yourself about how she sounded in audio?
No.
There you go, Lauren.
And I have like 72 podcasts in my feed. Not that I listen to them all, but I listen to a lot of podcasts. And for the most part, just like the lady you had last time who was worried about intro music,
Mm-hmm.
and just from somebody who listens to a lot of podcasts, that's what the headphones are for, because I'm always got them on listening to stuff. And what it is for me is the content. I mean, if the sound is really, really horrible to make to the point I can't listen to it at 2.5 times speed, then it doesn't matter. I'm just looking for the content.
Yeah.
I don't care about the music. I'll just simply tell my podcast player to ignore the first, whatever music they put in, I tell it to move forward past it.
Awesome. Well, Mark, I'll let you get back to your ignition, and I'll be bringing you up next here. So I'm going to take you off screen for now. If you'll just mute yourself, but I really appreciate what you've just brought in here. Okay. Awesome. So, Lauren, what are your thoughts about your audio quality and the acoustics of your room right there?
Don't get stuck on the details. And it's funny, I have some of my clients have found my social and they're like, I just want more of you. Every time you pop on, it's like, yes, like I needed to hear that again, or I wanted that again. And I think sometimes I get stuck in my own head, and I'm sure most of us do, about the things we can provide value for and getting stuck on those small details. And it's not worth it because the value is what people want. It's not the music. I skip the music too, to be fair.
Yeah,
Listen to
I do as well.
something.
So I also want to address the idea of the value. And one of the greatest values I think that is starting to, a lot of people are losing sight of, and I I admit that I have lost sight of it at times in my journey. And that is authenticity when it comes to just the way that you communicate and how you show up in your content. And so often, like for example, when I started the live stream, you and I were already on Zoom before I went live. And I couldn't hear you. You could hear me, I couldn't hear you. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, I've been looking at this. It's time to go live. I've scheduled, I emailed, I told people I'd be here. So I went ahead and went live knowing that I couldn't hear you. And I worked out the technical issues live. Now, I can promise you this, anybody who was watching live as soon as I went live, or anybody who's watching the replay of this hours later, weeks later, months later, or years later. By the way, if it's 2030 and you're watching this right now, email me. Hello from the past. Anyway, I promise you this, none of them cared that there were little bits and pieces where we were waiting to try to figure out the details. And they were like, Cliff, I hear her. Why can't you hear her? My Rodecaster Pro 2 isn't the most awesome thing in the world. That's what all there is to it. And leaving that in this live stream, I'm not going to go download this, edit out all of those little technical glitches, and then put it back up. No, I'm leaving it. That was real life. And oftentimes there's value in leaving the glitchiness in the audio only production stuff as well. So let me share with you some things that are coming in here. By the way, I didn't do this before. When I asked you the question, how would you feel if you unsubscribed and I sent you that message? Matt Perkins said he would have unsubscribers remorse. I love that. Chris said, I find that the topics which resonate with my soul, mind, will, and emotions are the topics that tend to develop for the podcast I produce. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Chris. Matt says, actually love he says, your audio sounds great, Lauren. And I would say that your audio sounds very, very good, Lauren. And that's only because I'm an audio snob. But if you had a podcast and the topic was of interest to me, and you had the audio quality that you have on this call right now, I would listen to it.
That's good to know.
Back in the day, my mentor, one of my mentors, Dan Miller, author of the book, The 48 Days to the Work You Love, when I first discovered that he had a podcast, I listened to it and his audio quality was a 3 out of 10. It was terrible. And I listened to every single episode. I told everyone else about his book, and I was responsible for thousands of copies of his book being sold. I was also responsible for sending thousands of people to his podcast. I was also the recipient of thousands of emails saying his book is amazing. His podcast has some of the best content I've ever heard, but I couldn't subscribe to his podcast. I couldn't stay there. I can't listen to it. And his audio quality was horrendous in the very beginning. But those who really resonated would still even do it. And from Matt's perspective, your audio sounds great. All right, so let's move on here. We've got Chris says, authenticity is critical for me, and I want to feel like you are talking with me in my living room. And I would even venture to say that Chris means warts and all, mistakes and all, everything. Just leave it all in. In the earliest days of podcasting, when there were only 20 or 30 different podcasts in existence, one of them was Adam Curry. And Adam Curry was one of the co-founders of the technology of putting media enclosures or MP3 files into an RSS feed. He and Dave Weiner created this technology. And Adam Curry, if you don't know who he is, he was an old school, he was one of MTV's earliest and first video disc jockeys when MTV first came out. So he had this program and it was called the Daily Source Code. And he would record like several hours a day, every day, and publish it as a podcast. And the most amazing thing about it is he would record this whole, let's just say 2 or 3 hour show. And there would be mistakes everywhere, issues everywhere. If he spilled coffee, You're listening to the guy clean up the coffee he just spilled. And it's one of the things that made it awesome. But and what I will just share with you, Lauren, one of the things that's great today is that AI is capturing the heart and attention of so many people, and so much of what they're doing is AI driven this, AI driven that, and things are getting so pristine and so cleaned up. I was even guilty of this. If you just go the cliffravenscraftshow.com and episodes like seven in the 770s, like just like 5 or 6 or 7 episodes back, those podcast episodes, I started to script myself and read scripts before I recognized that ChatGPT has a known way of sounding for everyone. And you know what? People were saying, Cliff, I miss your authentic voice. I miss the way you would just chat and talk. And so if there's anything, just hit record, share what's on your heart. Don't try to over outline it. Don't try to over script it. Just be you. All right. What else about podcasting do you want to talk about in this launch of your show?
That answers a lot, because I feel like one of the things that resonate with me, because I've worked with teens and kids too, is when they show up, I'm showing up as another person, and I'm like, I'm just real. And they're like, oh, this isn't a normal office. My office is in a gym. And we go into the back room and we throw balls around and we hang out, and the kids want to come back and the teens want to come back. And I have that same persona with working with even adults. It's like when you're here, like we're showing up. Um, Half the time I don't have makeup on, right? Like, and that's just like an unusual thing. But I think I also recognize I miss authenticity with people, right? So even thinking of doing the podcast, it was, I want to have that voice with people and not just talk at people, but feel like I can meet people where they are. And this is some information maybe you haven't heard before. And this is how our brain actually wants to learn. And this is how our brain actually can change. And yeah, so that's what I want to offer, because I feel like I miss it, and I feel like others must be missing it as well. Just having conversations instead of constantly questioning yourself or having to learn something all the time.
Lauren, when is your podcast launching?
I don't know now. Maybe that's sometime this year. Maybe before the end of the summer. We'll see.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how much does your soul desire to communicate through a podcast?
It's up there. I've had it like on this little vision board over there for over a year now. So I'd say it's probably at least at an 8 or 9. Like I want to share. I want others to know that they're not broken and they were never broken. And yeah, that's a really important message. I feel like I hear a lot from the people I work with right now, and that people need to hear.
Let me ask you, why is it an 7 or did you say a 7 or an 8 or
Like
an
an
8?
8. Yeah,
Why is it
'cause
not? What's the gap between 8 and 10?
um I guess just doing it, right? I feel like there's still stuff I don't know.
Oh yeah. So let me just share with you. If it let I'm going to tell you step by step exactly how to launch your podcast within 24 hours. All
Okay.
right. And and once I tell you this, there will be no question on how do I do this. All right.
Okay.
So this is how simple it is. After you get off of here, go anywhere. Do you know how to use your microphone that you have and record your voice into an audio file? Do you know how to do that?
My husband definitely does, and he would be happy to show me.
Okay. So step number 1, ask your husband to help you set it up so that you could hit record, speak into a microphone, and then turn that into a file. So that's the first thing. Ask your husband to set that up. The second thing, speak into hit record. Hi, I'm Lauren. I've been wanting to do this podcast for, I think, over a year. And here's why. Here's who I am. This is where I've been. This is what's on my heart. This is what I hope to accomplish. This is what this podcast is about. There's all sorts of things I don't know about podcasting, but I am excited to learn and grow as I go. Here are some of the fears that I had. Here's why I'm going through with this anyway. Here's what I invite you to, how I invite you to engage with me. I can't wait to get this start. I'm excited that I am now getting this thing started. I don't know how frequently I'm going to do this. I could be here every day. I could be here once a month. I could be here every week. I don't know yet. I don't even know what I don't know, but I am so excited I finally launched this. And if you want to hear another episode, email me and let me know. Here's my email, trixie123@gmail.com. Anyway, that's a callback, obviously. So that, by the way, if you're listening and that's not Lauren's email. Although I do encourage everyone to just go right now, wherever you are listening to the podcast or this live stream or the replay, everyone go email trixie123@gmail.com and tell them Cliff said hello. All right. And don't worry how you spell it. We might hit 3 or 4 people. I love it. Lauren, do you see how you can just have fun?
Yeah.
Just have fun. That's the key. If there's nothing more important than you let your soul sing when you're recording.
Mm.
That's the most important thing. Let your soul sing into the microphone. And then hit stop. All right? Then your husband will take that recording and turn it into an MP3 file. All right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't have any dog in any hunt here, but I'm going to just tell you 2 different services that I think you should consider. One would be Buzzsprout. I don't even know how you spell it, but just do a Google search for Buzzsprout. Or simplecast.com. Either one of those 2 would be perfectly fine. There's at least 100 other podcast hosts out there. They're all just as good. All right? Buzzsprout or simplecast.com. Go to one of those, sign up for their least expensive one podcast hosting package. And it's going to, when you sign up for the account, it's going to ask you for the name of your podcast. It's going to ask you for podcast artwork. Go to canva.com, click new, get podcast artwork. It's going to create a 3,000 by 3,000 piece of artwork for you. Save it as a JPEG image. You're going to need that. Go in and create a name for your podcast. Don't overthink it. You could change it as often as you want. You could literally change the name of your podcast over and over again. So just give it a name. And then give it a description. Upload it's going to ask you what's the name of your first episode, title of your first episode. Put a title in there. It's going to ask you to upload the MP3 file. It's going to ask you to give it some show notes. This literally all of this could be done within 24 hours. And then you hit submit, and now your first podcast episode is inside your podcast hosting platform, and there's an RSS feed. Now, from that point, you could instantly go to Instagram, do a reel, click a little link, and say, here's my first podcast episode. Here's a link to it. And you could click a link to that, and anyone and everyone would be able to listen to it right there on Buzzsprout or Simplecast's website. They'll see a little thing there on how they could subscribe to it via RSS. But also, there's one other step that you're going to want to do, and that's going to be to distribute your podcast to all of the different podcast apps. The big ones that you need to be concerned with is Apple Podcasts and Spotify. There's likely going to be other options for you to choose. I have not used Simplecast myself or Buzzsprout, either one of them, but I have many clients who have, and I can tell you right now, they're going to have an option for you to just say, click here to submit your podcast to Spotify. Click here to do it. And they'll either do it for you or they will have step-by-step instructions. One thing I can assure you, that if you truly ever desire at a 10 out of 10 level, all of this could be done within a single 24-hour period of time. And within 7 days, and it probably will be within 24 to 48 hours, but certainly within 7 days, your new podcast will be available in Apple and Spotify and all of the other podcast apps that pull from the Apple Podcast Directory. Now, do you have any lack of knowing what to do to actually get your podcast out to the world?
Nope.
Okay. So, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much does your soul desire to have a podcast?
I mean, it's like a 10. I would love to do it and see what happens.
Excellent. So, what date is your podcast going to go live?
That's a good question. Because now my head's doing the thing where it's like, how long does it have to be? Should I do video? Should it just be audio? And then that will determine how quickly I can get it done.
So, from a mental health coaching perspective, You and I both know about the word should.
Uh-huh. I know. As I asked the question, I knew what I was asking.
I know. No, there is no should it be video. Should it be? There is no. The, here's if I can give you one piece of encouragement right here, right now. Go and get everything wrong. And just give yourself grace and permission to do all of it wrong. By all means, go in and record and have some sort of terrible something happen in the middle of the audio production and you have to re-record it. Go and hit publish only to realize that you forgot to trim off the first 35 seconds, and so they click play and there's 35 seconds of nothing, and so people abandon the episode because they think that you uploaded an empty file with nothing in it. Have permission to do everything wrong. By all means, make your first episode 37 seconds in length. Or if you choose to dare to do so, make it 3 hours and 57 minutes long. There is no right, there is no wrong. The only thing to concern yourself is do not concern yourself with anyone on the other side. Only ask this question: what would make my heart or my soul sing? One of the most valuable things that has happened for me is when I discovered a quote from Howard Thurman. I have no idea who this guy is, but I love his quote. And he said this. He said, "Do not ask yourself what the world needs. Instead, ask yourself what makes your heart come alive. And then go do that." And then he said, because what the world truly needs is more people who have come alive. I totally butchered that. It's totally paraphrased, but it's something like that. And do you see how I'm not even concerned about getting that right? But just go and do it. Get it all wrong. There'll be plenty of time to get it right. And by the way, there is no right. There's just what you put out.
I was just gonna say that, and the best time to do it is in the beginning when not a whole lot of people are hearing you do it, right?
Yeah. Let me share with you one thing. As I've helped more than 40,000 people in the world successfully launch a podcast, and if there's one thing that I've seen countless other podcast consultants teach people to do when it's their very first podcast, and that is to go and record 5 or 6 or 7 episodes so they could all be released at one time. If you've never recorded a podcast episode ever before, it's one of the worst things that you can do, because you will have a way of talking and communicating in that first episode that when you go back and listen to it later, you're going to be like, that's terrible. I can't believe how many times I said or totally or like or whatever. I would encourage you, just still put it out there or edit it if you want to. But here's what I do recommend. I recommend for anybody that's a brand new podcaster to do this. Number 1, record your first episode. If you choose to edit it, by all means, edit it. You may end up over-editing too much out of it, and it sounds unnatural, but that's okay. It happens. It's a mistake. You're allowed to make as many as you want for as long as you want. Anyway, record your first episode. If you choose to edit it, by all means, edit it. Then publish it. Then subscribe to your own podcast in whatever podcast app you desire. Make sure that it gets delivered, and once it's delivered, download it. And go on a walk or do the dishes or do anything and listen to the episode from beginning to end, as cringeworthy as it is. But here's what I would recommend. Never record your second episode until you've done all those things. Because then I will tell you that you will automatically improve when you go sit down to record your second episode. Ask yourself, what did I like about how I did? What do I want to do differently? What do I want to change? Modify. And I would do this. I would force myself to listen to it after it's published and it's out there for everyone. I'm not going to delete it. You can, but I don't recommend that you do. I'm not going to delete it. I'm going to listen to it as if I was a listener and a subscriber myself. Keep doing that until you feel like you have found your voice. And once you've found your voice, then you could, it's only at that time when I would say that you should consider recording multiple episodes and scheduling them for later release.
Okay.
Now, question for you.
Mm-hmm.
When is this podcast going to be launched?
Ooh. I would love to say by this weekend. That's going to be my goal
Sweet.
by Monday.
Awesome. I love it. So here's what I would ask you to do. Will you email me, cliff@cliffravenscraft.com, and send me a link to your podcast episode? I would love to subscribe to it. And here's what I'm going to do. Now, oh goodness, am I really going to commit to this? Give me a second. Yep, I'm going to commit to it. All right, I'm going to commit to this. So here's what oh gosh, no, I don't have that service anymore. I was going to say that I was going to say you could go to mindsetanswerman.com/Lauren podcast, and it would forward to your podcast. But I'm getting ready to cancel my WordPress website that uses the Pretty Links plugin. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. When you email me, I'm going to go into the show notes and edit them so that the link to your podcast is in the show notes for this podcast episode. Now, obviously, I'm going to be putting this out very soon, and so there's no link to the podcast. And it's going to say this instead. It's like right here is where Lauren's podcast link would be if she had launched the podcast. If it's not been launched, email me, Cliff Ravenscraft, and ask me what happened with Lauren's podcast. And then I will email you every time I get an email asking you where that podcast is.
Okay.
How's that sound?
I'm up for it.
Lauren, is there any way else that I can support or encourage you today?
No, I think this was huge. I'm excited for this. And it actually feels like fun because I love to talk and my friends are tired of hearing me talk. So maybe someone else is ready to hear me talk.
That's exactly why I launched all my podcasts. I'm not kidding you. So for just a second here, the reason I launched a podcast in December 2005, almost 20 years ago, was because I was watching the television show Lost with my wife. And there were all of these hidden clues and all of this mystery. And there were other podcasts that were out there talking about these hidden Easter eggs, these clues. And there were the writers of the show and actors of the show all participated in an online forum. And there were millions of people around the world engaging and asking questions. And there were all sorts of hidden stuff. And it's like, this is incredible. And I would go to this weekly gathering and I would hang out with this group of people, and they're talking about the weather or sports, which I have no interest in sports. And they would allow me about 6 minutes of indulging in my Lost obsession. And they're like, that's really great, Cliff. Okay, Cliff, we're going to talk about sports again. And I'm like, okay, I get it. Nobody wants to hear me talk about this. So I'm sitting there blogging for hours, right? I'm blogging. My blog is getting read by all of these people around the world, but it's a lot of work to blog, and I don't get to talk about it. I want to talk about what I'm blogging about. So one day, the Transmission podcast by Ryan and Jen Azawa, they said, hey, why don't you leave some audio feedback for us? Send us an audio file, and we'll consider playing your file. And I did this amazing theory called the Thomas theory. And I did a 3.5 minute audio summary of my theory, which is absolutely rock solid. I knew for a fact it was right. And I knew I had solved what was going on the island. And so I gave them this file and I submitted it to them. And they played that 3.5 minute audio file in their podcast. And it linked back to my blog where I actually had all of the side-by-side images to prove my thing. The day after that podcast went live, I logged into my website, or turned on my website, and I went to my blog to start another entry. And it said, account suspended, bandwidth exceeded. Please contact billing department. And what happened was somebody from Entertainment Weekly was listening to their podcast, heard my audio file, wrote a quick little post about it on EW.com, and hundreds of thousands of people were on my blog. And that's what shut it down. I got it all worked out, finally got it back up and running. And as soon as I did, prior to that, about 300 people a month were on my site. Now it was about 30,000 people a day.
Wow.
And I'm like, I started getting emails, comments, Cliff, you should do a podcast. Your audio was so great, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, dude, I don't need to be told more than once. I'm doing a podcast. And that's how I got started.
That's awesome.
Lauren, thank you so much for coming here today. Tell your husband I said hello. What is your husband's first name?
Gabe.
Gabe, hello. I am honored that you came here, that you asked these questions. And is there anything else, or do you feel like you're complete now?
I feel good. I'm excited to do this, and I guarantee my husband's probably watching this right now while he's downstairs with the kids, and he's gonna be like, "So we're doing this," and yeah.
You're doing it. You know you are. By the way, we would have had a completely different conversation if when I asked you, does this make your soul sing? You know, if this was all about how do I grow my audience so that I can get more clients for my coaching and stuff like this, and I'm not sure, there's no way I would be convincing you to try to launch a podcast if that were the intent.
Yeah, and I feel that because I'm a believer, and I know that God always brings the right people to me, and I know that this is just another platform to reach the right people so that they can come and get the right help. So I do believe that, but I love the advice on the email list because I think that's huge, and that personal touch is really needed because I think it's missed more often than it's not. So
absolutely. And as soon as you said God will bring the right people to me, and just think about the 79 he's already brought.
Right.
I love it. Lauren, thank you. It's such a pleasure. Feel free to reach out to me anytime.
Thank you so much, Cliff.
All right. I'm going to bring Lauren off the screen here. And real quickly, if you are listening to this in audio podcast form, I do want to have you look at the show notes. Make sure that you go check out Lauren's podcast if the link is there. And if you look at the show notes and the link is not there, and let's just say it's beyond July 27th. All right. So we'll just give that date. Any day beyond July 27th, if the show notes have not been updated with a link to Lauren's podcast, I want you to email me, cliff@cliffravenscraft.com. In the subject line, put, where's the link to Lauren's podcast? And then mention this is probably episode 774. Whatever it is, just mention this episode. I will figure out the details and we'll get you a link to her podcast. And by the way, that's no pressure. Lauren, if you decide that it doesn't make your soul sing, there's no reason to do it. But thank you all so much. Okay, I'm going to wrap up this audio recording and we're going to go over to Mark next. All right, so that takes care of that. We're bringing Mark back up. It's been a while since I chatted with Mark. Let me get a different screen set up here for you. I think probably going to do better as a square with the orientation that we have there. Mark, you and I chatted a few weeks ago, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah. I think it was the last time you were doing one of these Ask Me Anythings.
So I think if I recall correctly, let me just check here real quickly. If I go to thecliffravenscraftshow.com, episode 772 was titled Distraction as Enlightenment, Reclaiming Imagination, Podcasting as a Path to Service, and then the final one was Freedom from Judgment. And if I'm not mistaken, the fourth conversation in episode 772 of the Cliff Ravenscraft Show was the conversation I had with you. And if I recall correctly, you were going to go and read the 4 agreements, and I invited you to come back and ask me or anything or have any kind of dialogue about it.
Yeah, I just thought I'd give you an update because it's a lot to process. It's, now it's like flooding in because when you said take it deep, which I did, I realized that I'm just going to say this is me seeing how a lot of people are having interactions, but in all reality, to give you an example is say, whoever raised the person, the judgments and tapes and whatever you want to call it are interacting with somebody else whose parents and life and childhood and schools and bullies and all that stuff inserted ways of being, and so two people aren't actually authentically talking. It's this, I got this after listening to it for a couple times. I got the whole concept of the smoke, but I put it more into, it's almost like two genuine souls aren't interacting. It's all the tapes and all the judgments and all that stuff that are interacting. So it got me to be a lot less upset with my wife when she wasn't doing what I wanted her to do or what I expected her to do, or even if she said she was going to do or not do. Um, and so things are a lot calmer at the house. It's also been difficult because I'm basically having to deconstruct what I guess I would consider my personality because of all the stuff that's going on. So I don't really have a question so much as I just wanted to say that I got a lot out of it, and I'm going to continue, and I'll give you updates. But it's a lot of hard work because I realize how much I've been like just watching TV and taking finishing TV as like getting dopamine or finishing something. And so I've been much more, instead of just paying somebody to fix my ignition, um, because I don't know if I can figure that out. Um, I went ahead and just took the whole thing apart, and I've got it almost all back together. And it was one thing after another, and I gave up. And then the guy said he would come and didn't. So then I tried it some more, and I've got it close. I can get the car and start it to turn on, but there's one little plug I can't figure out where it goes, and I think that's the plug that is the, you know, anyhow, I don't want to get into what it is, but I've got it. So in the, when you've said life happens for you, not to you, the fact that the guy didn't come, and I was kind of upset because it meant my car wasn't working, meant that it gave me one more day to figure out that I forgot to put a spring back in.
Yeah.
And so, and got me farther and making me feel better about myself. So it's just, it's so many things. I'm still trying to get a handle on it all. Um, so all I can say is I took your advice. The implementation is extremely hard, and I have to keep catching myself. If I tell myself I'm not going to have junk, I have lost a couple pounds since then. But I have to tell myself, okay, you said you weren't going to have this, so don't have it. Um, if I said I was going to do something, I'm very careful now not to just face that I'm going to do something just to feel good about myself, but to say less, but to be, try to be as ruthlessly, about getting it done. Even if it means, like I said, I was going to walk, I do 2 half-hour walks a day. And if it's close to bedtime and I haven't gotten the walks out, I just I just do them. And so, or whatever it is. And so I'm just making small goals, hitting those goals, and keep going. And it all sounds good, like you were talking about sometimes with people put out their best reel on Facebook. So I'm still falling a lot. It's a lot to process, but I now have a direction. It's kind of like you're wandering in the wilderness and you can't figure out why it is you keep bumping into walls. And now I get why I'm bumping into the walls.
Yeah.
Now I know what the walls are.
Yes. It all starts with that. What you are speaking of is I have an awareness of what's happening. And that's the very beginning of the journey, is to become aware that this isn't you. This is all of that programming. This is all of that, all the agreements that you've made about what's right, what's wrong, how things ought to be, what your belief systems are, and all of this other stuff. And throughout your entire lifetime, everything you've ever heard, every experience you've ever had, every assumption you've ever made, everything that anybody's ever told you that was true, and you agreed with it, all of that stuff, every single bit of it is being stored. And the amalgamation of all of that is what we call your mask that you wear to interface with the world. And I use the phrase mask very intentionally because the word persona is the word for mask from the old Greek plays. So they would have Greek actors and they would play different roles. And so you might have two or three or four different actors on a stage, but each of them would play multiple different characters in the play. And they did this by they would hold a mask up to their face, and which was called a persona. They would hold a persona up, and that had an appearance, if you will, to be this person. And then they would go off stage, pull that persona or mask off, and put this persona on. And that's this persona. Now they can be a different character in the drama or in the play. And my favorite quote from Sadhguru is a quote where he says, this is what happened. And then what happens is you would put this persona on, you'd put this persona on. But what happens is you and I have been developing throughout our life a mask, a persona, and it's stuck to our face. We think it's us, and now we have what's called a personality. So I went all the way through that because you said, wow, I feel like I'm going through this process where I want to deconstruct my personality. I want to take the mask off. I want to be more authentically me. I want to have the ability for me to have a soul authentic conversation with the soul authentic version of Cliff Ravenscraft, and not just the mask that he has. I'd like the two of us to interface with each other without all of the lies that we've agreed with, with the dream of the planet, which is using the language from there, that keep us from seeing ourselves as one in unity, to seeing that we're not so different except for our accumulated experiences and beliefs and concepts and everything like that. So that's the first thing I want to share with you. The second thing that I want to share is you said several times, it's hard, it's hard, it's hard, it's hard. And I will just share with you that as I reflect that back for you, do you recognize that the fact that it is hard is nothing more than a belief or an agreement you made with yourself that what you are experiencing is hard?
I kind of get what you're saying, but in some cases, habits are hard to break. I'm not trying to make excuses.
Hold on one second. So let me pause you there, Mark. Check this out. Yeah. Habits are hard to break. Do you believe that that's true?
Well, I could say habits are hard to break for. Now I'm even going to say it depends. I guess habits I'm getting something out of are hard to break.
Well, let me play with your mind for just a moment. So first of all, the idea that habits are hard to break, that I can't begin to tell you the number of times I hear that belief expressed. I've had that agreement myself. I no longer have that agreement. So first and foremost, what is a habit? A habit is something that we are able to do subconsciously, with it automatic. It is on autopilot. So we are no longer consciously doing something. We've actually done it so many times. It's been repetitive. It's become a part of our identity. It's become a part of our persona, if you will. All right. A habit is something that just is on repeat in its hypnotic rhythm. So that is really what a habit is. The minute you become consciously aware that you are stuck in a cyclical pattern and habit, and then you make a conscious, aware decision that I no longer desire this, if you stay awake, and what I mean by that, if you stay in this place of awareness, when you see yourself doing it again, it is no longer a habit, it is a choice. It is a conscious choice. So habits are easy to break if you choose to stay consciously aware of that area of your life. You can instantly end a habit by simply staying consciously aware. I'm not saying that you won't continue to choose it. You may have trained your nervous system in a certain way, and it desires it, and it might fight back and say, "Well, this is who I am. I can't not do it now." I'll give you a perfect example of this. During COVID, there were a couple of friends that I've had that decided, "Oh my gosh, because everybody's sheltered in place and because of all this stuff, I'm going to show up and I'm going to do a live stream once a day every day." And it's like it's going to be 2 weeks to shelter in place, and so they decided, I'm going to do this, and their idea that they were going to do this for 2 weeks. Well, they did it for 2 weeks, and we didn't all go back out to the world after 2 weeks, if you recall correctly. And so it drug on for a while. And then what happened was, all of a sudden, these people they said, well, I'm going to continue to do this for as long as we're stuck into this mess. Well, eventually, slowly, people started to open up the world again. People were going out and all these other things. But these people it had become a part of their identity. Who am I if I'm not the person who shows up every day like this? So the thought of quitting that, it was a habit. It had become a part of their identity. It had become a part. Their nervous system was trained to receive a lot of fulfillment and enjoyment. They received lots of praise. Lots of people got so much value. It's like, how can I stop doing this? It feeds so much of and it's just who I am. It's what I do. It's not a big deal. And yet when they began to consciously become aware of the fact that this is actually hindering them from achieving some other things they want in their life, they're like, wow, I don't know that this is actually aligned with who I want to be in the world right now. And how to break that habit, you actually just simply have to become aware of how this all came about, or at least that it's happening, and then make a conscious decision as, what is it on the other side that I want, that this is keeping me from? And then it becomes an evaluation of how much pain and pleasure is associated to the activity of the thing you want to end, the habit you want to end, and how much pain and pleasure is there on the other side, having ended it and doing something else with your life or in your way of being. And in the early stages of saying, you know what, okay, now I'm pretty clear on all of that. If you get enough pain and pleasure associated in the right ways, that can, and oftentimes I've seen, an instant end to the habit. But if the levels of associated pain and pleasure is not quite yet worked out, it can be more challenging, but it is no longer a habit. This is where you become an owner of your life rather than a default liver of your life. You become a respondent instead of a reactionary person. And so once you are aware that, wow, I have this activity that has become a part of my identity and it feeds all of these things, and yet it's still not what I desire, if you actually evaluate yourself and you're aware that you're doing it anyway, understand that what you're doing is no longer a habit. It is a conscious decision to do it anyway. So in your example, I said I wasn't going to eat this junk food that I've been eating every day or whatever. And it's become a habit. Well, once you become aware of it and you say, well, this isn't there's several reasons why this is painful for me to continue this. There's so much pleasure in ending this, eating this stuff all the time. If you get enough of that associated, the eating would go away instantly. I've done this with a number of people through a single 90-minute coaching conversation, and it's just gone. But if there's not enough of that there, if you are still aware that it's happening, it's not actually a habit. It is a conscious decision. It's like, wow, I'm sitting here. It's been 3 hours since I ate breakfast. Lunch is about an hour. Still, my next meal is about an hour away. I currently have a lot going on. I feel a lot of pressure right now. In fact, I'm aware that there's some stress building in my body, and there's nothing more that I would like right now than a change in my emotional state. I desire to experience less stress than I'm feeling right now. And you know what sounds really good? A candy bar. I'm just going to, a big, gigantic, shareable size candy bar. And who am I going to share it with? I'm going to share it with me. All right. I'm going to eat both sides of that super large Snickers shareable size candy bar. And as I eat it, I'm like, ooh, I instantly feel the rush of the sugar. It's like, ooh, I feel the dopamine coming through. It's like, wow, I feel so much better. And if you could actually sit from a place of conscious awareness and know that that's actually happening, it's not a habit, it is a conscious choice. And you're aware that that choice is happening. And then from a place of awareness and understanding this isn't a habit that you're not in control of, you simply have chosen that you prefer the state change that comes from eating the sugar. And in the moment, that seemed more pleasurable for you, and it helped you alleviate some pain. And so it's all about becoming aware of it. All right. Here's what I know. Can you imagine the scenario I just gave you?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Now, here's what I will tell you. Here's how I know it's not an automatic habit. The thing is if all of a sudden you got into your car and you're about ready to eat the Snickers bar and everything like that, and then all of a sudden in your back seat is a guy who snuck into your car, and now he's got a gun pointed to your head and says, if you eat that Snickers bar, I'm going to blow a hole in your head. Are you going to eat the Snickers bar?
Oh, heck no.
See, that it's a conscious choice. Do you see it?
Cliff, you're right. Here, let me just say, I I do these Cabral fasts, and basically what it is it's a detox. And I don't eat from early dinner on Friday until afternoon on Monday. And for some reason, I actually enjoy not having to eat. I don't seem to have the same cravings for the candy. I can go in sex. Sometimes I think I'll just go longer. So you're absolutely right. I can make that decision.
Yep.
Based on, yeah, just based on my choice.
It's
I have no problem not eating anything when I'm not eating anything.
And the whole point that I'm making is the reason why it's easy for you to make those decisions. It's when you're consciously aware of the decision itself. And so if you want to break a habit, just become consciously aware. And if you want, set a timer. Set a timer to go off every hour and ask yourself, have I done this thing? And just it's like, wow. And if you do, don't beat yourself up about it. Ask yourself to be honest. Why did I choose to do that? And by the way, was I conscious when I did it? You keep asking this enough, and then every time you go to do it again, all of a sudden it becomes a conscious decision. It's like, wow, I'm about ready to put this nasty food into my mouth. Why am I about ready to do this? And you start evaluating in real time. You may still put it in your mouth, but it's not a habit. It was a choice. And what I'm getting at is there's so much power in owning the choice. And it does how I can tie this back to the 4 agreements. Stop judging yourself about it. Do the best you can always with what you do. Just it's a process. It's a whole part of this. Everything, every obstacle, every challenge, every habit, everything. It's all a part of the evolution of things that we can learn about ourselves to be more authentically who we truly are. So whether it's eating, whether it's any other habit that you have, things that you get easily triggered into, all of these are an opportunity for you to grow, to evolve, and to become more authentically you. And so you'll find that over time, it's like, wait a second, maybe the whole reason I feel so bad about eating this food is because all the things other people have told me about eating this food. Is that why maybe I'm afraid because it causes me to put a couple extra pounds on, and I'm afraid of how people will think of what people will think of me when I have all of this weight. And so this is helping me understand that, wow, I'm really overly concerned about how other people perceive me, which if I give them that power to completely have me domesticate myself on what I do or do not do for the approval of others, well, what else am I doing in my life that causes me to live unauthentically? And it's not like I'm trying to suggest to you that you should go out and do all sorts of things that are perceived by yourself and or others as unhealthy. I'm not suggesting that at all. It's an opportunity to evaluate and make your own agreements, become authentically you. And so drop the judgment, drop all of the anxiety and the shame and all of the other stuff, and learn, why do I feel the things that I feel? Why do I think the things that I think? Why am I doing these? Become more aware. That's all. It's just waking you up from all of the hypnotic reactions to everything in your life based upon all of the programming code that you just adopted unconsciously, meaning that when you were sitting there and you were 7 years old, and your best friend's mom made a comment about the food on the table. All right, it's like she said a passing comment, and then all of a sudden you from that point forward, it's like, oh my gosh, maybe I am somebody who overeats. It's like, you never know how much that impacts you for the rest of your life. And you didn't consciously choose to view yourself as an overeater, but it's there. And this whole deconstructing of the personality, this is what we're getting at. It's like, wow, where did I pick up all of these judgments of myself? And why is it still there? So there are two things that, Mark, that we're at. The first one was it's so hard to break a habit. I'm going to go real quickly and just ask you, through all of this, do you see that it could be easy to break a habit, and it could be as easy as a conscious choice, and it's a conscious choice that you make over and over again, and the only reason why you may fail is that there's not enough pain and pleasure associated on each of the sides of keeping the habit or breaking the habit in that language vernacular, or it's an issue with you going back to sleep, meaning that I'm no longer consciously evaluating what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, and I went back into hypnotic rhythm where I'm living by default, and I'm just letting my programmed subconscious mind make all of my decisions for me. But if you stay awake and or you have enough pain and pleasure to shift everything, habits could be broken in a second. Do you think that that's true?
Yeah. Yeah, I've been thinking about that, and I have caught myself going into the refrigerator or into the cabinets getting stuff, and not so much under what you said, but under I said I wasn't going to, be careful with your word.
Mm-hmm.
And so I stopped myself many times with that. And so I get what you're saying, and what I need to work on then is looking at the pain pleasure analysis of, I want to get thin. I want to be able to, use the windsurfer that I have, make it easier to get out of, if I fall off my jet ski, get back on the jet ski, all that kind of stuff. So there's just things I want to do in life that I just can't do at this weight. And I have to tell myself that the dopamine hit from, just eating this, whatever it is in the moment, isn't worth the, I think about it going the other way around. If I was skinny, would I eat that to get fat? And that would not be worth it.
So you're starting to see. So that's the first, that was one of the first things I wanted to share with you. So if you understand that the actual statement, it's hard to break a habit, that is nothing more than a belief. Just this short conversation, we've already changed your mind about that truth.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now,
yeah.
I want to go back. Changing is hard. It's nothing more than a belief. This is hard. Deconstructing my personality, this is hard. The one thing that you could do to make that true for you is to repeat it over and over and over and over again. And once you adopt the belief that this process of deconstructing your personality and becoming more authentically you, the one way for you to definitely make sure that that becomes a part of your reality is to agree with it and to repeat it and say it over and over and over again. So what I would encourage you,
and
think about this. What if it were absolutely a pleasurable adventure of deconstructing your personality? To think that you have the privilege of becoming aware of just how many things in your life have been reactive. And now all of a sudden I have been given this great awareness of where all of that has come from. And each day I'm afforded new opportunities, an adventure to learn something else that's been programmed inside of me. I take full responsibility for making the agreements, but each day I get to evaluate the agreements that I've made. And the way that I actually get to become aware of the agreements that I've made is something in life happens and there's an instant reaction. And now that there's a reaction, it's come to my conscious awareness. And now I get to evaluate, is this authentically me? Is this how I want to be? Is this how I want to react in this situation when my wife said something or didn't do what I hoped that she would do or what she might have said that she was going to do? Or do I want to choose to have the opportunity to respond with unconditional love to my wife and to myself and drop this agreement that this is how life ought to have been? And it's do you see how instead of saying this is hard, this is really hard, what a gift, what an adventure it is to go through this personality deconstruction and also reconstructing the personality that I desire to have. I want to construct a mask that represents and mirrors my soul. Do you see? It's a gift. Not that it's really. So what I'm trying to do is give you the opportunity to see this journey that you've been introduced into. Instead of seeing it as it's really hard, what a gift, what an adventure. And sure, it presents its challenges, but it doesn't have to be really hard. It does have to be really hard if we say it's really hard and we say it many times and we fully believe that it's hard, and we will actually, our subconscious mind says, I will live in alignment with whatever you believe to be true. And if you believe it's going to be hard, I, as your subconscious mind, will do everything within my power to make sure that this is as hard as possible. Or this could be as adventurous as you desire. This could be a wonderful gift that I can experience each day when all of these challenging emotions and reactions start showing up to the events and circumstances and the people in my life. It's not really hard. It's an opportunity.
Yeah, as you were saying that, I'm not trying to change it because I was about to say, yeah, you're right. It's not hard. It is a little bit overwhelming, but then I'm changing it again, and it's not even that. I just need to take it one thing at a time because I tried to take your advice of of go deep, don't just do it surface level. And so it started, I'm good at like being able to say, oh, there's that, but that links to that, that links to that, that links to that. So it wasn't the change was hard, and maybe the word hard was wrong, but I have to be careful because I'll go down the rabbit hole and become a bit overwhelmed. And so I need to just stop and say, let's just not try to link all this stuff together. Let's take one thing at a time, work on it, and then not worry about what that leads to that leads to that leads to, and then kind of go away for a second and go, whoa, and just I'm going to do one thing at a time, and get it rooted out, whatever the negative, or even again, see now you're really making me think. Not negative, inauthentic.
Yes.
But that's what I'm saying it's not hard. It's just I have to deconstruct the inauthentic parts that don't serve me.
Yeah.
and that aren't true.
Yeah. And it's there, and for everyone, it is a lifelong pursuit. And depending on which spiritual uh, um, tr- what's the word? What is the word? Traditions. What spiritual tradition?
Hmm.
It's a multiple lifetime journey. So no matter where you are, it's definitely a journey, and it is one agreement at a time. It is one situation at a time, and that's the whole thing. And the great news is, the beautiful thing is, every belief, concept, every single one of those things that makes up your persona and your mask that you deconstruct, every one you consciously say, I break with thee, I break with thee, I break with thee. As soon as you break that, you instantly become more authentically you. And so it's kind of like, it's the statue of David. I know that you've seen this illustration before, where they asked, who was that? Was it Leonardo da Vinci who did the statue of David?
Yeah.
Anyway,
Or is it Michelangelo? Yeah.
Michael is one of those
It
guys.
doesn't matter.
It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. But it was one of those guys who created these stone sculptures. And they say, how do you do this? He goes, I just take a block of marble and I just chisel away every piece of the marble that's not David inside. And if you think about
Yep.
that, it's a great metaphor of our life. So every day, and there's a, if you do a Google search, there's an image of the actual statue that's chiseling away at itself. So it's a block of marble chiseling away at itself. Have you ever seen that before?
No.
Okay, well, hold on.
No, I'll have to look that up.
Now I'm not going to make you do that. We're going to go find this thing. So this is the fun. Okay, so statue, chisel. I don't know how to even spell chisels itself. Here we go. I found it. Here is one of them. So it's something like this. Do you see it?
Oh yeah, no, I see the before and after of myself.
Yeah. So this image right here, this is the metaphor of deconstruction of the persona, taking off all of the parts that are not you. And of course, this one is more about weight. In my mind, this one is, I think, too heavily focused on weight loss as much as it is. I wish they had one that was more like a block of marble, where it wasn't so much that it's fat, it was just a block of marble, and I'm chiseling away all the parts of the block that's not me. But yeah, it is what it is. I think these images are too much about weight loss, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
I wanted to leave you with that image.
Okay.
So but number one, I'm thrilled that you read the 4 agreements. I am thrilled that you took the challenge to go deep. There is definitely a lot there. You use the word hard, and you're like, okay, maybe not hard. It can feel overwhelming, which kind of feels like a lot like hard, but still, the interesting thing is, that's the 4th agreement. The 4th agreement is about, it's like, listen, never give yourself guilt or grief or any of that stuff. Always do the best you can. And the best you can changes moment by moment based upon all sorts of things. There are so many different factors of where you are in your state of being. And it's over time that you learn what some of these triggers are, and you find the agreements that have been made in there, and you deconstruct them, you break up with them. And by the way, you're not going to break up with everything. And I'll never forget the very first public post that I mentioned, where I was going through, I even said, I'm going through a spiritual deconstruction journey. And I had a number of people actually one in particular, who was very public about saying, it's like, okay, dude, Cliff, you've gone too far. This is trouble. You're going down a dangerous slope, and before you know it, you're going to have this, and this, and this. And I just don't understand why that is such an issue for some people. Yes, I'm going through a deconstruction, and I'm evaluating everything I've adopted as a belief before. And interestingly enough, there are still quite a few things that I'm firmly committed to. So, for example, I recognize that a marriage is between a man and a woman. And in my mind, that if I make a commitment to marrying the woman that I married nearly 30 years ago, that it's a lifelong commitment. You know what? That was an agreement that I made. Now, does it have to be true? I could break that agreement. I could say, whatever. Here's the situation. I evaluated what makes my soul sing. What's authentically me? What's authentically me is living into the commitment that I made to my wife nearly 30 years ago. I do want to live the rest of my life with her. I want to remain faithfully committed to her. But it's no longer an unconscious decision that is brought about by what would people. I'm not here. What's different is the number of people who don't leave a marriage because they're afraid of what their family would say, or what their church would say, or what God would say, or whatever their concept of God would say, and all of these other things. There's all of these fear-based decisions on why they wouldn't leave a marriage. Whereas my decision to not leave a marriage is my authentic decision that I authentically love. My soul is in love with the soul and of my spouse, and we are committed to this lifelong human experience together for as long as we both shall live. And that's my decision. It is a conscious choice. So while I have deconstructed my beliefs about divorce, and by the way, I've actually even deconstructed my beliefs about a marriage should be only between a man and a woman. I have many of my clients who are same-sex married couples, and I love them, and I no longer have any feelings that what they're experiencing is by any means wrong. I broke up with that agreement. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm going to go and leave my spouse and go have a same-sex marriage. It's not what my soul wants. But what I'm getting at is by deconstructing, I actually also have the opportunity to construct my mask that is a more pure mirror of my soul. It is not my pure soul. Everything that's a mask is still a mask. Everything that's in the mirror is still a reflection, because my soul is this pure divine source energy that's of God. But I have to have something that is a mirror that actually reflects that in such a way that interfaces with all of the other things in this world that is of God. And so that is this mask, that is this persona. But now my dream is a personal dream that I get to create rather than inherit from everyone else.
Yep. Yeah, that's. I'm not trying to stall it. Just a lot of stuff hits me at once.
Yeah.
Because again, just the one thought leads to another. It's the four agreements. They all wrap into each other in so many different ways that I guess the big thing is the takeaway for me, the big ones, not that there aren't more, is stop drowning in complication. Take it one step at a time. I've been a lot better about not getting upset with myself, or if I mess up, I just let it go and say, I'm going to do better next time. And actually, and again, this is why I say, even when I say that I'm going to do better next time, I can't even promise myself that.
You're going to do here's what you can say. I'm always going to do my best with whatever I have to work with at all times.
Right. Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
Now, let me ask you this. In episode 772, I published our first conversation before I went on vacation. And in that conversation, what prompted me to share the book, The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, with you was primarily this idea, the concept of don't take anything personally and don't make assumptions. And the reason why I had suggested that book to you is because you said, Cliff, I have a hard time sending invoices because once I send an invoice, I feel like I'm now inviting that person to judge the work that I've done. How are you now that you've read this book? Has that shifted that for you?
A little bit. I've still got problems with it. Hold on. My phone just said it needs to cool down. So if
No worries.
I leave you, it's nothing other than my phone's in a case. I'm outside. And so I'm just trying to peel the case off so it can cool off.
Hey, no worries at all. So
Almost there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
take your
Now it should be able to bleed off. Yeah, that is the one. Yeah, no, I've got it. So that's the one thing that I have a problem with is just simply doing that because I guess I mean I have been putting them. I've been doing the ones that I've finished since we've talked, but getting the back invoices done. I've still had a bit of a problem with.
Yeah, and let me ask you this: when you say the back
So
invoices,
I'm keeping up with what's.
How far back do they go?
Oh, I don't even want to say. It's bad. I mean, it depends. What's funny is it depends on the customer. I have some that I've just been rolling around in my head, and it's been years.
Okay.
And
well,
some, and it's not huge, but it's just this little thing, that little thing, and I sometimes put too much weight on or make assumptions about things to give myself excuses for not doing it.
Yeah.
But I just am I'm see again. I sit there and think and then I start as I'm starting to say it. I start to come up with no, wait, that's not true. That's not true. That's not true.
Yeah. That
And
you're
so,
aware. You're sitting in what's called the seat of
yeah.
awareness when that is happening. This is the brilliance of this book. Now all of a sudden you're actually aware. You're not actually associating these are my thoughts. Every one of those things where it's like you should have done this, you shouldn't have done this. This is what they're all of these thoughts that are going through your head. One of the things that was happening before is like these are my thoughts. This is what I'm thinking. And it's very clear to me now that when you're sitting down and you've sent some invoices for work that you're doing now, and now as you're sitting down and thinking about sending the backlogs when it's like it's been so long, you're starting to be aware of the voices in your head that's saying these things. And the key here is that you are actually understanding that those are not your voices. Those thoughts are not yours. They are remnants of the agreements that are installed inside of your belief system. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, what I would recommend that you do, Mark, is simply continue to work. Start with the most recently due. So it sounds to me like as you've been doing work, since you've been reading the book, you've been sending the invoices as they're, as you complete. Now start going with the most recent work completed and just start sending out the invoices and work with yourself on all of the thoughts that are coming as you start hearing those things. And here's a cool little thing to give those voices in your head. Say, listen, I recognize that I should have sent this invoice in the past when the work was completed. I completely forgive myself for not doing so. I'm simply going to send the invoice because, number one, they agreed to pay. Number two, I'd like to have the money, and I'm just going to send it. And regardless of how they respond, whether they pay, all of that other stuff, I'm not going to take any of that personally. I'm not going to make any assumptions. I'm just sending invoices for things that people have agreed to pay me for projects I've completed. And, as you get to beyond, it's been more than a year since I completed this work, just send the invoice anyway. And if somebody writes to you and says, man, Mark, what are you talking about? I sure I agreed, but I don't even have the money now. There's no way. It's like, why didn't you invite blah blah blah? You could, if you wanted to. Do you realize this is you know, as you know what, you're right. I'll tell you what. I'll just wipe it out. I'll void the invoice. No big deal. I should have sent you the invoice before. By the way, if there's anything I can do to be of service to you in the future, feel free to reach out to me. Do you see how this is an opportunity for you to be of service? And it's not like if you did that, you're missing anything, because if they refuse to pay or say they can't pay because it's been 2.5 years since they agreed to pay you and they've since spent that money somewhere else and now they're in a bind, they can't afford it. Do you see how you wouldn't have got paid anyway if you didn't send the invoice? And so either way, you're not getting paid. And best case scenario, you could forgive the invoice. You could wipe out the debt and say, hey, no big deal. You know what? I should have sent you the invoice before. By the way, what's going on in your world today? Is there anything I can help you with now?
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not just saying, yeah, quick. It's like when I know, I know.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
I'm a pretty fast thinker. And so I need to just, like the E-Myth, work on your business instead of in your business. And I need to work on my life instead of being in my life more.
Yes.
Like, stop being my own non-player character.
Yes. That is exactly it. Mark, I just want to say again, I am thrilled that you went and you read the book, The Four Agreements. It's clear that you went through at the level that I had recommended. And this is amazing. If anything, hopefully the biggest encouragement from here is to recognize that, yes, there's a lot to deconstruct, but there's no pressure to deconstruct it all at once. You didn't accumulate everything into the baggage that you carry around with you overnight, and you're not going to deconstruct it all overnight, nor is there any expectation. So just know that with every agreement that you reevaluate and choose to keep with you moving forward, every conscious decision you make from this point forward makes you a more authentic version of your soul in this world.
Yep. Yeah. And I just want to say, for anybody who is listening to you and hears this, just get on and talk to you, because the being stuck part is horrible. But I've seen you do it with so many other people. And I think that so many of our problems, we can work through them if we're just willing to open up and try. And I would say, for anybody else who's stuck, if you hear the podcast, get on his email list. He puts these out. And I'm not just trying to shill, because I've been listening to you for I don't know how long. It's been a long time. And it wasn't until the last time you did this that I just felt called, as you say, to just do it. And now, it's like with everything else. I wish I'd done it sooner, started sooner.
Well, you've done it now, Mark.
Got out of my fears sooner.
You've done it now, and I'm thrilled. And I'm glad that you came back for another round here. And these Ask Me Anythings are not going anywhere anytime soon. So feel free to join as frequently as you desire, my friend. I'm always open for the dialogue.
All right. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Have a great day.
You too, Mark. We'll talk again soon. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
All right, so I'm going to just mark my audio file, the end there. Charles, if you give me a thumbs up, I'll bring you up on camera if you wanted to do that. Okay, so let me just click here. Charles is up next. I just need to bring this here. Give me one. Actually, that looks good. So, Charles, how are you?
How are you doing? I'm great.
I have never been better. It gets better every single minute of the day.
Yeah, well, I don't really have any needs, but I saw you were doing these, and I've been watching a little bit, and saw an opportunity, so I jumped on. I saw you last at the Free the Dream 2019.
Oh, wow. Very cool.
Yeah.
Life has changed a lot since then, huh?
Sure has. Matter of fact, I went through a lot of really hard times after that, just with with my business, and I got knocked down pretty hard. But right now, I'm actually, I'm employed. I'm working And I'm in oil and gas. I'm a control systems specialist. But I was listening to some of the themes you were just talking about there, and it's like the whole identity thing. And I've probably been on a 10-year long deconstruction of my own faith and tradition. I was raised a strict Baptist, and I was very strict. I mean, they had some doctrines like closed communion. Only our church members could have the communion, and they were the only ones that were part of the bride. They had these really strange doctrines, and I always rejected that. But by the time I was 17, I just walked away in disgust and disillusionment. I actually started almost became a bit of an atheist, saying, I believed in the ancient astronauts, that God was this cosmic clockmaker that made the world, and walked away. I had some really strange beliefs, but eventually I did come back to, poly, and I congratulate you on 30 plus years of marriage. I've been married 42 years. And I've made that same decision. It's a covenant. Marriage is a covenant. That's why I made a covenant. It's to death. We made that till death do us part. And so as long as I can have anything to say about it, obviously things beyond your control. But Polly was a good little Baptist girl, Southern Baptist girl, much more liberal. They didn't have all these crazy restrictive doctrines. And so, I reconnected with the people in the community of God. And, so I'm a believer, and but about 10 years ago, I came into a completely different understanding, more of a more ancient understanding of who God is. And came into contact, with the 10 words. And so I live my life by the 10 words.
I've not heard of the 10 words. Tell me more.
Well, they're probably more commonly known as the 10 Commandments, but it's
Okay.
the Haharet Davarim. It's the 10 words. It's really not commands at all. They're a covenant. The Sinai, the mountain experience, was actually God's wedding vow to his bride, to his bride Israel, and they accepted it, and that's the truth. That's what God has always wanted, was to marry his people.
Nice. Very cool. So you came to this ancient understanding, and you had deconstructed the faith that was part of what you had just been inherited in many ways.
Everything. And it's really literally been 10 years. And of course, I'm still in the process of deconstruction because so many things that I thought about who God was, what God was, it's all based on tradition and things that we learn in seminary and things that theologians tell us and things that we think the Bible says, and just not. That's all I could say.
Yeah. That's amazing. Wonderful. Well, you said there's nothing that you had as far as a problem. I'm not here only to have problems, but is there any way that I can serve you in any way?
I'm just, not at all. I just wanted to chat, and
Okay.
and I had a few minutes and just wanted to see if there was anything that I could help you with.
Huh.
And I know that you were I think the last time about that time you were you were just doing the coaching method, really getting started with it, and so I think you had really deconstructed a lot of things about how you were looking at things too. And I was just wondering how that went, and how is your coaching experience now? You still have your masterminds, and you still are very active with all of that, or has that changed somewhat now since all COVID and all the crazy? I don't know if you can say that anymore. It used to be a real kind of a hot topic. You couldn't even say it without being censored.
Yeah, I don't concern myself about being censored. If they shut me down, they shut me down. That's fine. So let me make sure I understand what you are referring to. So you said you were introduced into a coaching method, and I was doing some things there. So
Yeah,
you were obviously at Free the Dream
I was at Free the Dream 2019, right?
Yeah, let me pause for just a second. So and this is not just for your benefit, but also for anybody who might be tuned in. So, but at Free the Dream conference, I had already left the life of Podcast Answer Man, podcast consulting. That had been already gone for at least 2.5 years. And just prior or leading up to Free the Dream Conference 2019, the 5 years leading up to that was very heavily influenced by my deep dive study into all things Tony Robbins related and ancillary, very similar to Tony Robbins' personal and professional development. And that became so much as of the emphasis of the work that I was doing. And also right before Free the Dream 2019, I think that might be when I was introduced to the Prosperous Coach Method by
Correct.
Rich Litvin and Steve Chandler.
Yes, you had just gone out, or were just going to go out to be with Litvin. I know that was a huge step, because it was it seemed like just from listening to your podcast and listening to how you were approaching it, it was a totally leap of faith.
Yeah, it was a completely different way of building a coaching business, quite frankly. It was, I've been in the world of sales and marketing, and here I am doing invitation and referral only.
And well, I remember leading up to the 2019 Free the Dream, I was working, doing my thing, and driving to Houston downtown and back and forth and listening to your podcast. You were leading up to it, man. You were really banging it. You were hitting it hard, to get that, to build the momentum and get the buzz and everything you needed to really, you were focused on the numbers and getting the numbers at that Free the Dream. And it was almost like you just switched.
Yeah.
You just switched. It's like, never mind. It's not about the people. I don't care. Whoever comes is supposed to be there. It was a completely different, just a shift. It was a big shift.
Yeah. So you were listening to the content leading up to it. And back in that day, I was probably still doing daily vlogs on top of everything.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is, it was 2 weeks before Free the Dream 2019 that I took the foot off the gas. Matter of fact, I stopped promoting the conference at 2 weeks before the event. And in fact, during those 2 weeks, I was already asking myself, do I even want to continue doing Free the Dream conference anymore? And do I want to instead go small, reach a much smaller audience, but go much deeper? And that for me is what had occurred. Is like, you know what? My original vision was I wanted to grow Free the Dream conference to stadium size events. And
you were on track to do that.
I was definitely on track to do that. And I had a conversation. Do you remember me doing any podcast content about a conversation I had with Michael Hyatt?
I don't remember exactly. I mean, I was certainly listening to everything.
It was in, I did actually share this whole conversation with Michael Hyatt in a podcast episode of the Cliff Ravenscraft show back then, but I'll give you a highlight of it. One of the things that happened was again, 2 weeks before Free the Dream 2019, I was already in Tennessee speaking at Jeff Goins' final Tribe conference. I was doing the closing keynote for him. I had just traveled down to Montgomery, Alabama, and I spoke at Giovanna Ellison's Thrive Summit. And I mean, I was making the circuit.
Right.
I was like, and
I listened to some of her stuff too. And I think she was there, wasn't she?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So I was doing all this, and then I was back in town in Franklin for the 2 weeks leading up to Free the Dream. And Michael Hyatt texted me. He says, "Hey, Cliff, I see that you're in town. I've been watching all your content. Would you like to go out to steak dinner with me?" And of course, I'm never going to pass up an opportunity to be taken out for a steak dinner with a guy named Michael Hyatt. So we go out to dinner. We're having this conversation. He says, "Cliff, let me ask you this question. Why are you doing Free the Dream? What is it for you?" And I explained to him, I said, "Well, I can tell you right now what it originally started to be." And I told him about the vision of the large the stadium events and all this other stuff. But more than anything, I said my heart and soul just wanted to share this message that you can intentionally create the life of your dreams. You could actually, whatever is in your soul to create in this world that's authentically you, not what everyone else has told you who you should be, what you ought to be, what's responsible, but literally anything that your soul truly authentically wants to be in this world. You could have this. You could free this dream. And I was like, this is a message that's important to me. I said, so my greatest intention was to share that, to influence in people's lives in that way with this message. And that's why, and so I'm doing this. Then I said very authentically to Michael, I said, one of the things that I've noticed over the past year since I did Free the Dream 2018, and now that I'm, coming up on Free the Dream 2019, unconsciously, but now I'm very consciously aware of it, I'm recognizing how much my ego is getting a boost by this. And that this vision of me having a stadium with tens of thousands of people who attend this event, authentically, it had nothing to do about me in the beginning. And I'm like, who the heck am I? I kind of felt like Moses being called by God and say,
Right.
I think you got the wrong guy here. And truly feeling like God was nudging me, and yet something shifted, and all of a sudden it's like, now I'm starting to think about all of the power I would wield if I had the attention of all these people, and look how many people I could sway, and thinking of how important I am and what I'm doing. And I told him, I said, it's kind of getting under my skin a little bit. It's like, I don't like that I'm having those thoughts and feelings. And in fact, I didn't recognize it, but part of me questions if I even want to have that level of influence in the conscious minds of so many people. And part of it was a little bit of fear about something I was experiencing with just one person who had, I think, some mental issues that was a consistent troll and had been for many years. And, never to the point where I needed to get the authorities involved, but right to the line.
Yeah. Ginky. Weird.
Yeah. And so there was a little bit of that, and I'm like, and that's with my audience being as small as it is now. And I follow Tony Robbins and a bunch of other people enough to know that when they go into town, it's, you don't just go out to dinner with your wife and sit there and have a peaceful conversation. You're going to be asked for a ton of things, like, can I get a selfie and all that, and
right.
The anonymity. It's like, man, I kind of don't know that I want to lose all of that.
Yeah. When you're a firewalker, man, I mean, you did the whole thing with Tony Robbins, and I was like, I know exactly where you're talking about fame now, which is something I don't have to worry about. I'm totally anonymous. But I was just listening. I watched this guy on another YouTuber. He does a thing where he has the cabin or whatever. He goes around the country and lives in it and stuff. He was just talking about the notoriety he gets. He can't go anywhere now without 10 or 12 people recognizing him. And he said, I don't like that. That's not why I did this.
Yeah. And part of me, I'll tell you, there's a part of my ego persona that's not yet been fully deconstructed that still likes and feels enticed by that. It's like, I kind of would like that. What I can tell you, though, is the real concern there is that with the percentage of people that follow me at that level, even if it's 0.0000001% are the people that would cause you issues, if you know what I'm saying, that increases as well. And I obviously was a little bit more fearful then. I don't know that I actually experience a lot of fear now, but this was because I had a bit of a spiritual awakening in 2020 and 2021, and since then that has changed a lot for me. But what I'm speaking of is this conversation with Michael Hyatt. So I was sharing with him some of these things, and here's what Michael Hyatt said to me. And by the way, at this point, I'm pretty sure I was already, let me pull up my spreadsheet and I will tell you when I started the Prosperous Coach Method, because I have every Prosperous Coach coaching call in a thing here. Yeah, July 2019. And also, I can tell you, I'm so glad you're asking me this, Charles, because this is putting, how many pieces of the puzzle are there. This would also be the period of time that I actually had my second one-on-one coaching call with Rich Litvin. I was about ready to pay $100,000 to have him as my coach.
That was the part that was kind of in the background that you didn't really talk about.
I couldn't talk about it, and I can talk about it now. So my very first coaching conversation with Rich Litvin was produced as a podcast episode. I'm pretty sure I put it in the Cliff Ravenscraft show. I also put it in Cliff's notes on Profitable Coaching. And a couple years later, Rich Litvin actually took that full episode of my podcast with no intro and threw it into his podcast feed, by the way. So my very first one-on-one coaching session with Rich Litvin is a very public thing. But right in this 2 week, right before this, and also right when I was having this conversation with Michael Hyatt, same time frame, all this happened within this 2-week period leading up to Free the Dream 2019. But I had this coaching conversation with Rich Litvin, and we were just chatting. He says, Cliff, why do you want to have me as a client? And I said, Rich, I've had a conversation with Michael Hyatt that shifted everything. And the reasons why I wanted to hire you before no longer exist. He's like, tell me more. So I told him about the entire conversation with Michael Hyatt, which, by the way, I have not finished yet. So if you're interested, I'll come back and tell you the rest of that conversation. But I had this conversation with Michael Hyatt, and I went and I said to Rich, I said, as a result of that, I no longer have a desire to build a stadium event. I no longer have a desire to make $1 million next year. I know I have the opportunity. I know that I could be pressed. I could be held accountable and all this. I said, just my soul is not in it. Quite frankly, I want to focus a little bit more on the spiritual side of things. I want to speak more into identity. I want to work with a smaller number of people, but to go deeper. And quite frankly, I'm already there. I'm already doing that because of your book. And so Rich said to me, this is something that I learned. He says, Cliff, you're an autodidact. And I'm like, I've never heard of that term. And so he quickly told me what it was, and I since looked it up. He says, Cliff, I've only met a couple autodidacts in my life, but you're clearly an autodidact. And when he told me what it was, he said something along the lines of, an autodidact is the person who is a self-taught person, meaning that they have the ability to learn any skill or develop any ability without the aid of a teacher.
One to another.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that explains my entire life. I've never taken a course on computers. I've never hired a teacher to help me with any of this stuff. It's like anything I've ever wanted. It's like the Old Testament when God wanted them to build the Ark of the Covenant. He just gave people abilities and they knew how to do it. At least that's how the story goes anyway. So autodidact. And he said, but maybe I still want to have you as a client or as a coach. And he says, well, if that's the case, then what would I said? No, that's not how I said it. I said, if I still wanted to have you as a coach, there would only be one reason. And I said, that would be the credibility by association. And it's a real thing. It's a psychological thing in the minds of others. The reality is I know that you have a very large following. I've sent thousands of people to go buy your book, but there are so many thousands, hundreds of thousands more that have read your book. And if people knew that my coach was Rich Litvin, I could boast about that, and I'd be more likely to have higher ticket clients. He goes,
influence,
and said, Rich said to me, he says, Cliff, if that were any part of the reason of you becoming my client, I would not want to have you as a client. In fact, here, let's take it off the table. If now or at any point in the future that you ever become a paid client of mine, it will only happen under the agreement that you would never tell anyone other than your wife about it.
NDA.
He said that will be the only way I will accept you as a client is if you promise to never tell anyone that I had coached you.
So you couldn't tell me if you did.
I couldn't tell you if I did. But
that's
yes. So there was all of this. It's like, wow. So what was it in that conversation from Michael Hyatt? And the thing is, he said, Cliff, let me ask you this. It sounds to me like at the purest level of what you're doing, you truly want to have impact and influence in people's lives to help them free the dream inside of them. Yes. Also, I told him there's a third reason why I want to do Free the Dream. So the first reason is that I want to have impact and influence in the world. Number two, I didn't recognize it, but it had creeped in as a motivation because he asked me, why are you doing Free the Dream? First one, I wanted to have impact and influence in people's lives. Actually, the second one was monetarily. I want to earn the level of money that I would earn from doing that, doing something that I love so much. And then the third one that I didn't know that kind of crept in was for the fame. It's like, man, the idea of being super famous appeals to me, and I don't like that part of it. So when we got all that, he goes, well, let me ask you some questions. He says, who would you say is the most influential person that's ever lived, ever walked this earth?
That's easy.
Yeah. And I sit there, I said, well, that would be Jesus. And he's like, interesting. So let me ask you this. When he had the opportunity to spend time with thousands and thousands of people, he could have done that all of the time. Yes? Yeah. How often did he do it? How much of a focus was that for him?
He wanted to go away.
He did not pursue that. I mean,
he wanted to be alone.
Exactly. He preferred working with people in smaller numbers. There was the 72, there was the 12, there was the 3, and I would argue that his favorite disciple was Mary Magdalene.
Well, that's true, John, but probably Mary as the female.
Yeah,
we think of the male. We think of the male. But yeah, you're right. Mary Magdalene.
I think
much closer. She anointed him for his death.
So
yeah, you're right.
Anyway, I will just say that
women are so underrated by men. It's terrible.
So he's like, okay, now let me ask you. He said, let me ask you this. You've done Free the Dream 2018 and Free the Dream 2019. How much impact and influence did you have in the lives of those who came? And I said, it was last year. It was really great with these many people and stuff like that. He goes, Cliff, I'm not questioning it. It's like, you don't have to prove to me. You held it in my backyard because it was literally 3 miles, or actually maybe 2 miles from his house is where I held Free the Dream. So Michael lived right down the road in downtown Franklin. He says, I've heard nothing but amazing things from people who attended last year, Free the Dream 2018, and their lives are different. You had influence. You had impact. You did it. He goes, so not questioning that, let me ask you this. How much how much profit, how much profit did you make from Free the Dream 2000? I said, well, okay, P&L was, $7,000 or $8,000 in the hole, but it actually opportunity loss because of my not marketing other things. I lost $38,000 last year as a result of doing this. Dude, if you only lost $38,000 doing the event at the level you did, that's amazing. It usually takes a couple years to be profitable. He goes, okay, great. Now, he says, I know you used to also do these workshops before you did Free the Dream. You'd have 10, 12 people. And you had one session with 14 people who came and spent 2 or 3 days with you in your next level studio. Because let me ask you this. How profitable were those? I'm like, oh my gosh. He said, compared to Free the Dream. I'm like, the last one I did, I made $35,000.
Yeah, your workshops, the ones
Exactly. And he goes,
closer, smaller group.
Yeah.
More quality.
How many people were there? I said 14 people. He goes, let me ask you this. How much impact and influence did you have with those 14 people compared to the number of people who came to Free the Dream 2018? I said, it's exponentially higher. I mean, those people have ate dinner at my table in my home.
You had feedback. So you saw, like with the Free the Dream, you didn't really know. You sent them out and you hope they do well.
Well, at Free the Dream, in Free the Dream 2018, I made a point that I would have a minimum of a 5 to 10 minute conversation with every attendee at Free the Dream 2018, which I did.
Well, you did it in 2019 as well.
I did it in 2019 as well.
I had a personal conversation with you.
Exactly. But here's the situation, though. Those are still relatively small events. Free the Dream 2018, Free the Dream 2019, relatively small events. But still, I don't recall every one of those 10-minute conversations today. What I can tell you is that I recall every single person who attended a 10, 12, or 14-person workshop. Today, I still know them. I know them by name. I know what their business is. I know what their greatest fears were. I know what their biggest breakthroughs were. I know them. And I'm like, that drives me. He's like,
Well, now you did some one-on-ones too, didn't you?
That was my next one. He's like, well, what about first of all, he said to your mastermind group. He's like, what about paid mastermind groups? How profitable are those for you? And by the way, let me go over here. Close to masterminds. From November 2017 through June of 2025, I generated $1.3 million by hosting 1 or 2 90-minute calls a week as mastermind groups. So by far and beyond, the most profitable thing I've ever done was host paid mastermind groups. And he's like, those are limited to how many people? No more than 10 to 12 people. And sometimes there are around 7 or 8 people that are in the group. He goes, how much impact and influence do you have in the lives of those people? And he said, compared to the workshops, through the roof. And then he asked me about one-on-one coaching. I said, well, it's not
orders of magnitude.
Yeah. Right. And so he said, what about one-on-one coaching? I said, well, one-on-one coaching doesn't have the same leverage financially as the mastermind groups, but the impact and influence on one-on-one, I can have one 90-minute conversation with someone and that changes everything. And he sat there and said, interesting. And then he changed the subject. That's it. He asked those questions and didn't ask for any more dialogue. We didn't dialogue about anything more. But I left that dinner stuck on the idea of what in the heck am I doing? If my greatest desire is impact and influence and having profitability for the needs of my family and to be generous in the world, why am I pursuing this conference? And that's why 2 weeks before Free the Dream, I stopped selling tickets.
Yeah. I'm just like, what? I was like, total. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes complete sense now.
Yeah. That's awesome. What most people don't know is that when Free the Dream 2000 during 2019, the third day of the event, I had already decided that I was no longer going to do Free the Dream moving forward as a full-blown conference. Now, I didn't know COVID was coming.
Yeah, right. No, but none of us did. That was a sure black swan.
And one of the things, several people had bought tickets. I think like 30 or 40 people bought, tickets to the 2020 event. Mm-hmm. And I already knew that I was going to reach out to those individuals and say, listen, I'm changing Free the Dream from a conference to a workshop. So this is going to be an annual workshop that I do once a year, maybe even twice a year. And it's not going to be a stage event like I've done before. Instead, it's going to be more community relationship event. And if anything, it's going to be more like an organic, growing family reunion for the Free the Dream family. If that's interesting to you, then you're already paid. You're already in. If that's not interesting to you and it's not what you thought you were going to get when you signed up, I'll give you a full 100% refund. Of course, before I had to send that email, everything was canceled, and I ended up
on hold for 2 years or whatever it was.
But since then, I will tell you that I've focused on just going with a very small number of people, but going very deep, and working with people who are in a position where if they get a major breakthrough in a single conversation from me, they have the resources to financially get a return on investment that is incredibly high because of that breakthrough. And I focus on those people in my one-on-one. This is the first place where I'm publicly stating this out loud. But in June of this year, 2025, last month, before we went on vacation, my wife and I shut down both of my mastermind groups after 7.5 years. I shut them both down. And the reason is that, number one, I wasn't marketing them in the same way that I was. I preferred one-on-one. And because I wasn't marketing them, just randomly people would come in, people would go. And it just got so small that I'm like, one person didn't renew, and then another person didn't renew. And then I'm like, there's one person left in this group. And I'm like, I don't know how long it's going to be. Do you want to still be in this group if it's just you, or do you want to do one-on-one? He's like, well, I really miss the mastermind environment. I like multiple people. I'm like, I'm more than willing to go out there and keep this thing going and to see what happens. But I'm not real. My heart isn't in a major campaign to fill more seats yet. And here's the crazy thing, Charles, it's so much more profitable if I would just do this. If I would just fill this thing up, it's way more money to just put a bunch of people, but my heart is in that one-on-one dialogue with people.
Right.
And yeah, so
but you're in a position to do that, and
explain to me. Hold on. Explain to me what you think you mean by that, because this might be a very important part of the conversation.
Financially, you have financials. Obviously, finances are not really the consideration. You could do what you want. And you made the decision to not do the money.
Let me lay some information down that may blow your mind. My monthly revenue in my business is the lowest it's been in, let's see here, since 2009. So no, I am not in a
the motivation, actually, if you're business minded, would be to, hey, let's get it up. Let's get the business.
That's exactly right. So
stoke the fire.
So right now, I have no monthly recurring revenue from any paid mastermind group member at all. Zero. I have no live events currently scheduled at any point in the future right now, although workshops are getting ready to come back, right? But currently, none on the schedule, so there's no marketing for any of those and no income from those. No mastermind groups. I just shut both of those down. And I only work with one-on-one coaching clients, and my lowest package as of today is $15,000 paid in full for 1 year commitment. That's 1 90-minute session per month. So everybody who is currently a client has already paid me. So guess what my monthly recurring business revenue is right now? $2,000 a month. Affiliate income from Kajabi and Aweber. That's my monthly recurring revenue right now. To operate this business and to pay myself and to live the lifestyle that we need, $20,000 a month in business revenue. And we're currently anticipating $2,000 this month. Well, the thing is I do have somebody who has said yes to one coaching, so that'll be $15,000 on top of the $17,000, right. And then I might have something, but I'm in a position now where, quite frankly, I need at least 1 or 2 new clients every single month to continue to do my business, but there's no guarantee that will happen. And so I actually have a home equity line of credit. There's a significant amount of equity in the home that we have, and that has slowly gone up as there's been gaps in our income. So no, I'm not in a position financially where it's easy for me to make a decision to shut things down that don't feel aligned. And so if anything, I share all of that authentically and transparently to say I'm all about making sure that what I'm doing is aligned with what makes my soul sing and I know is to be the right thing to focus on. And I've been slowly working my way through deconstructing and taking away everything that's not fully aligned, in spite of the fact that I have no guaranteed known path to profitability moving forward. But I have absolutely no doubt that it's going to be profitable.
Then that's all that matters. It's because it's your faith that's going to make the difference.
Yeah.
Right. You're not worried. God's going to take care of you.
I have zero anxiety. I have had so many one-on-one coaching conversations with people about some of the challenges that they're facing and all this other stuff. And, none of them are aware of the fact that, I've had one paycheck in 2025. It's July. I've had one paycheck in 2025 and from my business. So 6 months without a paycheck. And on top of that, for the past year, I've been working with a roofer to try to come to a final resolution with a leak in our ceiling over top of our bedroom every time there's high winds and rains. There's this, there's that, there's all of these different things. And they just pile up. And I'm like, that's interesting. And it reminds me of what I was experiencing in 2019. I was experiencing, and I talked about this a lot. I'm like, man, I don't know where this is coming from, but I have an abundance of peace, love, and joy that is not tied to any external circumstance. And it seems like I'm unfazed. It's like nothing can faze that. And by the way, when I was saying that, I was making $30,000 a month and had 2 full mastermind groups, and I was doing all this other stuff. So it was real easy for me to say that then.
Right. But you're a rainmaker. You know if your
I know.
back gets against the wall, you can make it rain.
I know I can make it rain.
It's just money.
Exactly. And so
you learned that a long time ago.
I did learn that. The thing is that, you know, I just going through all of this, and the fun thing is I went through this spiritual awakening season of my life over, you know, 2020, 2021, 2022. And so all of a sudden, just a complete deconstruction of my spiritual beliefs, and then reconstructing of what I believe today, and all of this stuff. And ironically, when COVID hit and I got COVID, and then all of a sudden some things afterwards, man, what happened to this unfazable peace, love, and joy? It's like I started to experience a lot of dark nights of the soul, of
trials and tribulations makes the soul.
Yeah.
That's what really, this is iron sharpens iron, though. That's where you really get your strength from. It's what really makes you who you are.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what.
And what happened?
That's what I've been going for that for 10 years now. So.
Yeah, and that exactly. And so what's happened is with each one of these little things, it's like, okay. And it becomes a little bit more easy for me to say, you know what, don't sweat the small stuff, and it's all small stuff. And I'm talking about, you know, not just that philosophy. I mean, my mentor, you know, Dan Miller, recently passed, and he reached out to me and says, Cliff, I just been told by a doctor that I have maybe a couple of months to live, and I just want to let you know, and stuff like that. And he says, but listen, I don't want you to be concerned about me. I'm fine. I'm at peace. You know, and all this other stuff. Turns out he only had a couple weeks after that once he was diagnosed. And I can tell you right now that he's not the only example of this, but this man had peace through the final weeks and what he thought was going to be the final months. And there was all sorts of things that, you know, that most people would be devastated. He was one in an amazing line of people that I'm aware of in this life who have been faced with the most challenging things that previously I'd only ever read about in Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. How can you go through something like that and still find meaning and peace and move forward in life? And man, to see real life examples of it, and just how much impact and influence that had in my own growth journey. And so, you know, I've had a number of incredibly challenging things, health related, relational related, just a bunch of different stuff, financial related. And dude, I have so much peace. I have so much love. I have so much desire to show up and serve and just be authentically me.
Because it's internal. I mean, and I know that a lot of people have a lot of different things about who God is, what God is. The main thing is that he's undescribable. That's why he says, make no graven image, because I am beyond description. So don't even try. And so let's just stop with that. And then, like I said, just live the life that he, you know, the vows that he gave, the 10 words. That's why I come to 10 words. It's just, it's not judgment. It's just, you have to decide. Every person has to choose for themselves which way. And I think that scripture will interpret scripture, and you got to have multiple witnesses. You know, I have my own theories on, you know, and my own way of doing things to try to get to that deconstruction that makes sense. But that peace in your heart comes from the Ruach, the Ruach HaKadosh, the Holy One, God himself in your heart. That's what he's the source of peace.
Yeah.
So if you want peace, he's the source of peace. So you do those things to align yourself. And if you're in a covenant relationship with your wife, then you understand that you're in the same covenant relationship with him.
Yeah.
You know, and that's it. And to me, you know, there is one thing I want, and I really thank you for sharing that with me, because
absolutely.
And you've had a lot of influence on me, believe it or not, in a lot of different ways, just because I've been, you know, just how you cause you to think, stop, wait, you know, well, look, you know, how does that fit? How does that work? And it makes you think. So, and that's what you're going through with this deconstruction. At least I have. You know, it's to examine, self-examination, and what stays and what goes. And there is one thing though, and I'm a technologist. My background is I have a computer science degree. I've been in technology now for 40 years. I'm an old man. I just hit full retirement age. I'm still working. I'm going to keep working as long as I have good health and my, compass mentis. But one thing I'm doing is I'm using artificial intelligence to help write books.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people have a problem with that. Maybe they think it's not creativity. It's, you're just, I'm not talking about just telling the AI, hey, build me a book. No, I'm talking about having a conversation, a critical conversation. And I have a commercial version. So I actually train it. So, there's a lot of different types of AI. You got the general AI, which everybody's afraid of, like Skynet. Then you have narrow AI, which is specifically like a language model, which is what ChatGPT and Grok and others are. And those have biases inherently based on the developers, that biases they put in, but then you have your own memory that you can train them. So I have trained this model that I use. I call it Baruch, or that's the pen name on these books is Baruch the Scribe. Baruch the Scribe was Jeremiah's scribe. So I consider these as literally I'm a steward of that. And that I say, give me a 1,500 word study on the Melchizedek priest, 1,500 words. I don't take that and publish it. I take that as raw material then to go into my thought process. It's a rough draft. And then I hack it and hone it and change it. And like I said, I was in the military, so I was in battlefield surveillance, and you had multiple outposts that would acquire the target. We'd shoot azimuths to these targets, and somewhere in the center is where the truth is. And that's so I triangulate the truth. So in other words, if you have to have multiple witnesses in scripture. So you can't just grab a verse and say, well, that's what this means. No, you have to take that verse and compare it with 100 other verses. And what's the intent and what is the cultural context? Because we know now that, he's ancient. So we have ancient things we got to think about. What was the historical context of what was going on in the Galilee? What did that mean? What did that word mean? Well, it may not mean what it means to us. So that's how I write these books. And so I just want to get your opinion on that. And I'm just publishing on my Amazon. And like I said, I'm more than ready to deal with the controversy and defend the work and defend the fact that, look, these are my words, these are my intentions. This is my, I'm the inspired one. This is a tool. It's a tool. It's not inspired. It's not a spirit. It doesn't tell me what to say. It's just raw material that it's categorizing, analyzing, and presenting to me in a cogent format that I can work with.
So you want to know what my opinion on your use of AI to construct such books? Mm-hmm. Let me ask you, when did AI become available to the public, you and I? It's been, 2 years now? 3 years?
Yeah, probably 2 or 3 years.
Okay. So let's just go back to 1990. And let's just say there's a guy much like you writing a book much like yours. All right? Mm-hmm. It's 1990. There is no... even the internet as we know it today isn't really the internet. Okay. So let's just say that a guy like you says, okay, I want to write a book about such and such topic, and I'd like to have a body of work with thousands and thousands and thousands of words that are devoted to this topic. So what's that guy going to do? He's going to go to the library and he's going to take out about 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 10 books, and he's going to check them out and he's going to read them and he's going to it's 1990. Maybe he has a scanner at home and he scans a bunch of those things, and maybe he has some OCR and he OCRs it and puts it into notes, and he has the ability to organize his notes in certain ways. And so now he's creating little bits of this and that and all these other things. And then he starts having conversations with people. It's like, hey, I wonder, you're a professor of such and such, and you're an expert on this. I'd like to share with you some notes that I found from this book in the library, and I'd like to ask you some questions. Do you mind if I interview you about some of the concepts? And then I take your feedback and I take all of that and I record it and I transcribe it. Maybe I even hire somebody, because the transcription tools didn't exist back then. So I hire somebody to listen to our entire conversation and type it all out into a Word document, and so now I have that in my body of work, and I can pull from that, and I go back and I have lots of conversations with lots of different experts about lots of different things, and then all of a sudden I put the entire body of what was originally bodies of work with thousands and thousands of words. Now I've got my own body of work based upon all of my stuff, all of my notes and interactions back and forth and things, questions that I have. And I've come to my own conclusions, or not conclusions, but my own presentation of the material. This is my document. This is what I've come up with. And then I take the first draft of my book and I send it out to 5 different professionals, all of them, professors of this and engineer, PhDs of this. And I have them all read a copy of my book and send me back all of their notes. And each of those 5 different people have given me, among them, hundreds, if not close to 1,000 different notes of things that I need to consider changing and researching further. And I reach out to more experts and I do all of this other stuff. And then all of a sudden I take all of that and I send it back to them, and there's less notes. But man, it seems like, okay. And then I send it out to a couple of other people, and it's like, okay, now I really feel like I've got something that's maybe ready to be published. Again, this is all in 1990. All right. Now what I need to do is I need to set it over to a editor and have them review it and look for grammar mistakes and word choices and sentence structure and all this other stuff. And they go through, and this is a modified version of what I created, but okay, this does read better, and they found all sorts of mistakes and stuff like that. Then I send it to a proofreader who proofreads it, and they go through and they do all of this stuff. And then eventually I got this, and then I sent it out to a bunch of early readers to get, reviews. I still find a couple of things that need to be tweaked here and there and blah, blah, blah. And then eventually I send it out to be published. The only thing is in 1990, that would have taken you about 3.5 years.
Right.
And now you can do it in 3.5 months with AI.
Exactly.
What's the difference?
I've seen a lot of the criticism comes from low quality, and you do see a lot of people because they're just literally spitting it out. They're literally saying, AI, generate this 20,000 word book, and they're publishing it. And that's not what I'm talking about. And, but you can do it literally in 2 or 3 months. And so I just wanted to get what's your thoughts on it.
My thought is,
That's
what's the difference?
But
what's the difference between the 1990 guy and the 2025 guy? What is the difference? It's exactly the same thing.
And so the marketing and all that is going to be the same, right? I mean, so I have a job, right? I have an employer. I did that, but I was a consultant, and I had my own business prior to 2019, or 2020. And when that crashed, I went through a lot of hard times and actually wound up just grabbing a job just to survive. But I still have, I have royalties I'm getting now, some royalties, and I have some other businesses. I do some, I have some Amazon stuff, Amazon selling and so forth. So I have some kind of like Mark, some things I want to do that I would like to see that do more, certainly in the future, to not have to, to be self-employed. But yeah, so the marketing aspect would be the same. Send out books to influencers, have them look at it, and hope that somebody takes a liking to it and promotes it.
Yeah, and even for those who, talk about the low quality, they just publish things. Why are we so quick to judge what everybody does? I mean, people are free to do what they want. There's absolutely nothing illegal or immoral about going into ChatGPT and say, I want 25,000 words on such and such topic. And then going into a higher research version of the model and say, hey, take a look at this 25,000 words and do deep research and tell me, whether it's factually incorrect and all this other stuff. And and then have that incorporated in and things like that, and then have ChatGPT do it. It's not this, it's this, it's not this, it's this, and it's not this, it's this, but it still reads well. And then you just publish that thing into Kindle KDP, whatever that thing's called, and you put a beautiful looking AI generated cover on it.
Kindle book, paperback, hardcover, whatever.
And you sell audio. You sell it for 99 cents or $4.99 or $9.99 or $99.99.
Whatever it is, right?
And if somebody buys that book and they read it, and you don't disclose that it's AI because you're not required to, and they find value from it, who cares?
But I'm being totally transparent. You know, like I said, I put it in my forward, and I like I said, I'm using a pen name. I'm doing some things because I don't want to come across as, oh, this guy is just putting his name on there, and like the imposter thing, you know. But I wouldn't have to.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is like, what I'm saying is, if you're looking for my thoughts, is I don't see using AI to do in 3.5 months, which would have previously in 1990 taken you 3.5 years to do. I have no qualms about that. But even if you did it in 3.5 hours and published it, if it was factually correct, I don't care what tools were used. As long as it's there, as long as the user agreement of the AI tools doesn't require that you attribute it, you can put your name on it and put it out and say, hey, as a result of my desire to bring forth this into the world, this is what I'm sharing.
Well, I can tell you that Amazon requires you to make a declaration as to whether it's AI, what you use AI for.
Certainly live up to whatever that declaration is.
They're collecting research, and who knows whether they're going to change in the future how they control publishing based on that. But they want to know if you've edited it, how much you edited it, et cetera, and so forth.
I say I let the community of people who are reading the material. I mean, that's the thing is you know, most of the books that I read books because they were mentioned by other people of books that I'm reading. And those books were mentioned from another book that I read. And eventually, when it came down to it, it was because somebody that I respected had read this book, and it was so life transformational that they recommended it to me. And that's how I got it. And, you know,
AI is a reality. It's a part of our life now. It's just like so many people are Luddites. They just don't want to have anything to do with technology. They're afraid of it. They don't want to change. You know, as a technologist, you know, I've made it my career is to constantly change.
Well, a lot of people are just afraid. That's just the thing. And, you know, the thing is AI is going to change a lot of things. I mean, there would have been a day that I would have hired somebody to create podcast artwork for my podcasts. I did. I used to pay anywhere between, you know, $250 to $500 for a piece of artwork for a podcast. I wouldn't pay anybody $5 to create a piece of artwork for my podcast today, because AI can generate it for me in 30 seconds.
Or code. You know, if I need a macro for Excel or some type of JSON or some type of Python code, I can spit it out in 5 seconds, something that would take me several hours to put together.
Writing sales copy for a sales page, something I might have considered hiring somebody to do before. I'd never hire somebody to write sales copy for a page. AI could do it, and I could sit there with AI for 2 hours, and we could get really personal with some dialogue back and forth, and it could ask me really challenging questions and instantly pump out amazing sales copy.
That's right.
So it is definitely going to take away people's jobs, and of course I don't think it's just I think even some coaches could be replaced. You know, some of the coaching that I do for some people could be replaced. I don't think necessarily the identity level coaching that I do would, but I don't know. Potentially,
it doesn't have a soul. It's not a person. It doesn't have that part as an individual. Our identity, you know, it's like I said. I believe in God, and I believe that we are created as in the image of God, and that as a human, flesh and blood, we have that divine aspect of us that you will not find in a computer, and it's never going to be sentient. That's my opinion as an expert. It may, now you have to consider the supernatural factor, because, you know, the satanic prince of the power of the air, you know, Satan may animate, I don't know. That's Skynet, whatever. All I know is that right now, when we're talking about narrow AI specific to a language model, it's not a soul, it's not a spirit, and so it doesn't have sentience, and that's the part that's missing only you can provide.
Well, I will share with you that my own beliefs have evolved to the place where I think that the spirit of God, of all that is, the source of all that is animating everything that is in existence. And
I agree with that.
So when I think about it, every cell in my body has, I wouldn't call it soul, but it has intelligence in it, and it's an intelligence that's of God. And I believe that
it's energy.
Every molecule that is making this bottle and holding it and vibrating it at the frequency, and
sure.
That's an intelligence, and I think that intelligence is of God in the same way that my physical body and my brain is of God, and I think my brain is storing things in memory and causing things. And quite frankly, I don't see AI, artificial intelligence, as a whole lot different than the human brain.
I understand where you're going with that, and I can't say that I disagree, because essentially, if you want to look at it from that philosophical standpoint, we're all living in a simulation.
Yes,
we're living in the mind of God. Okay,
and so therefore,
that doesn't scare me. That doesn't bother me.
And so exactly. So for me, I and the concept of me as by the way, one of my beliefs has changed. I no longer, for me personally, I'm not bringing you into this belief, but for me personally, I'm no longer a human with a soul. I consider myself to be a soul inhabiting a human body. But even that, my soul, myself as a soul, and this physical body, and in all things in creation, are all in the mind of God. And so therefore, it's all an illusion anyway.
That's true. That's the Matrix, man.
Yeah, it's fun stuff.
Hey, I've really enjoyed this chat. I'm glad I jumped on. I'm glad you made it available.
When I decided this, it's like, okay, I want to start hosting How May I Serve You? Ask Me Anything sessions. Honestly, I really enjoy those conversations like you heard me have with Mark before, and like I had with Lauren. I really love coaching people. I enjoy these kind of conversations as well, and dialogues, and I keep doing these, and there's a part of me that's like, okay, is anybody going to talk to me today?
Oh, we could go a lot deeper, but probably people would not be interested. So
actually, one of the things I've learned, don't make any assumptions. And as far as I'm concerned, here's my situation. I am not doing any of this for anyone else other than the one-on-one connection, my soul with another soul. And as far as I'm concerned, I will likely take what we've done here and put it in a podcast episode. But I really don't care if anybody listens to it. I don't care if anybody is out there right now watching this live stream. I don't care if anybody ever watches the replay of this live stream. As far as I'm concerned, I'm here for you and I in this moment. That's the only thing I care about.
That's the best way to have peace about things too, then.
Yeah. And so if you think about it, if you say we could go a whole lot deeper, and if you want to go a whole lot deeper, anytime you want to go a whole lot deeper, let's go deeper, because I don't care what anybody else is interested, as long as I'm interested and I've got the time. Yeah. I'm go deeper.
Right. Awesome.
All right.
I've got to jump. Thank you though,
Charles. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me. And I think I'll wrap up here after you chop off, but come back again sometime.
Good. All right. So long.
Blessings.
Yep.
All right. I'm marking that in my thing here. And that is going to wrap up the third conversation I've had today. I started at 1:00. You can join me, by the way, at cliffravenscraft.com/join. I am going to slowly say last call. If you want to join me here, you can. Let me see if anybody's even streaming right now. Yeah, there's a handful of you out there streaming. So if anybody wants to join me, it's not too late. All you have to do is go to cliffravenscraft.com/join. There's a button there. It'll send you to the Zoom room where I can bring you in. We can chat. This is your last call. cliffravenscraft.com/join. Click now. Go there. Type it in. I'll give you just a few moments. But as I make these announcements here, and let you know that I'm hosting many of these Ask Me Anything sessions. How may I serve you? And you could literally ask me any question you want, as witnessed by this live stream today, and I will bring you in. Let's see here. I'm not doing this to market anything special. Although if you are interested in a private one-on-one conversation that's not in public, I am available for one-on-one coaching. You could email me, cliff@cliffravenscraft.com. But if you want to have an opportunity at no cost, nothing expected beyond it, just come to cliffravenscraft.com/join. And I will be back again tomorrow, Friday, July 18th. From 1 to 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Clearly, it's almost 4 o'clock, so if there's more people in the queue, I'm more than happy to have more conversation. So as long as I have the freedom. My wife is out of town this afternoon, and she's out of town tomorrow. So I may do impromptu, show up out of nowhere kind of sessions. You just never know. But if you want to make sure that you get alerted to when I do these things, and if they're scheduled in advance, I let people know on my mailing list. You can find that at cliffravenscraft.com. Just look for a place for you to put your name and email address, and you can do that. And nobody has joined me here on Zoom, so I'm going to wrap it up. I'll tell you what. I'll give you 30 more seconds if you're out there and you want to join me. cliffravenscraft.com/join. I'll give you 30 seconds. So, and if nobody pops into my Zoom room, we will call this a day. Also, want to let you know that some of the conversations that I have here are produced as podcast episodes of the Cliff Ravenscraft Show. You can find the Cliff Ravenscraft Show in your favorite podcast directory of choice, and also at thecliffravenscraftshow.com. All right. It's been about 30 seconds. Nobody has popped in. Until next time, I encourage you to find all the peace, love, and joy and fulfillment in your life that you have been searching for within yourself.